everybody. I see we have a lot of participants already, so we're looking pretty good. Thank you all for being so timely. I would say we're officially calling this meeting to order, the school building committee. It is January 12th, 2023. Just a reminder, this meeting is being recorded. First item on our agenda is public comment, which I do not have any, and I don't believe Miss Linville received any either. I see her shaking her head no, so we'll go with that. So I will turn things over to Margaret as she is going to get us started with our first designer, which is Mount Vernon Group, for our second follow-up interviews tonight.
Hey, everybody. Happy New Year. So we're going to do 2 interviews, each about the same length, about 50 minutes, give or take. We're going to start with Flansburgh, who you might remember went, I think, second previously. And then we're going to do Mount Vernon Group. And after that, that's not me, right? After that, we're going to go around. I'm going to call everybody's on the committee, everybody's name, and ask for their comments. And then we're going to stop, and I'm going to ask everyone again, and we're going to do a roll call and ask you to rank the 2 firms, 1 and 2. So 1 will be your top pick, and 2 will be your second pick. So the 2 firms have each been asked to address some specific questions about that, to sort of make sure that we have more of an apples to apples comparison. And the questions are around estimated projected costs, construction costs particularly, and schedule. So that's kind of it. I just want to, before I turn it over to Flansburgh, I just want to let you all know that my compatriot Ksenia Slavsky is here. Ksenia's waving. So she's been in the background on the project, but you'll start to see her more, and she is here to listen in. So any questions before we get started? Let's stop. There we go. Halo on my head. There we go. Okay. I don't see any hands. So when we have Flansburgh in the room and Mount Vernon, I do just want to, again, as an introduction, go around and ask you all to sort of say, hi, I'm so-and-so. This is my role in the city or on the committee, or, you know, I'm a parent, whatever. So, all right. I think we can bring them on in, Aaron.
Yeah.
Hi, how's everybody this evening?
We're good. Welcome.
Great.
Thank you for letting us attend.
I'm just going to ask George, are we looking for Peter Bradley?
Yes, Peter Bradley and David would be online. Hopefully they'll be joining us soon.
I promoted David, and then the other person I have not seen yet.
Yep, Peter Bradley. So, George, why don't you just send him, we have a little bit of a time before he jumps in, but that's Peter Bradley from PMC meeting.
I was just able to get on, Kent. Sorry about that.
Yep, no, thanks, David.
I can text Peter if you'd like me to. So you
That'd
guys
be great.
focus on what you need to say.
So we're extremely happy to be back in front of you presenting, and we met with some members of your group and did a walkthrough of our project, the West Bridgewater Middle Senior High School, and that's the project that we're recommending for you. And we'd love to walk you through why we think that's the best fit for Holyoke, and then we're going to go through some of the cost data and scheduling that Margaret outlined earlier. So I can begin sharing my screen and start the presentation.
So Kent, before we
Yeah.
launch, can I just take a minute and have the committee reintroduce themselves?
Absolutely.
Just so that you can, if there are questions, you can kind of connect the dots about who's who. So I'm gonna just call out names just to make sure we hit everybody. So Mr. Mayor,
Hey, good evening. Joshua Garcia, mayor here in the city.
Whitney,
Good evening, Whitney Anderson, Maintenance Administrator, Holyoke Schools. Hello to you.
and Whitney is with Ron Collmore, who is a longtime school board committee member.
Great.
Mark Lubold.
Good evening, Mark Lubold. I'm a volunteer in the school building committee and had the pleasure of walking through your great facility the other day. So thanks for taking us around and showing us what a great design that you guys put forth.
And Jamie.
Hi, Jamie. I am the Assistant Chief Procurement Officer for the City of Holyoke, and I too was with Mark at the walkthrough. So thank you again for taking us through.
And Jessica Perella. Thought I said, Jessica, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
We can now.
I'm sorry about that. Hi, thank you everybody for being here. My name is Jessica Perella. I am a mother of four in the Holyoke Public School System. I'm a UMass student, and I am on this committee for the academic extracurriculars.
Great. Rena Lorenzi.
Hello, thank you for being here. I'm Reina. I have two children in the school district, and I'm also a community member here. And I volunteer for the building committee. Thank you.
Peter Tallman.
Welcome, Flansburgh. My name is Peter Tallman. I am a city councilor at large in the city, and I am also sit on the finance committee.
Deborah Vega.
Good evening. I serve on this building committee, and I am a parent.
Dave Yost. I know I saw Dave.
Okay, now unmuted. Yes, I'm a parent, now grandparent, and on the committee with a particular interest in the financial aspects of the project.
Great. And I think Aaron, Camilla, and Kathy are not here tonight, right? So we're going to go to Jackie Glasheen.
Hi, I'm Jackie Glasheen. I'm the Executive Director of School Leadership in the Holyoke Public Schools, and I have a senior at Holyoke High.
Terrific. And Anthony.
Hi, I'm Anthony Soto. I'm the superintendent here at Holyoke Public Schools.
Kathy Ortiz, now I see you. I'm so sorry. You're next.
That's okay. I'm Kathy. I'm a volunteer from this committee, and I am a resident from Holyoke. Thank you.
Great. And Aaron, last I think is Aaron Brunel. Last but not least.
Sorry, Aaron Brunel, school committee member at large and fortunate enough to be vice chair of the school building committee.
Okay. Now, Flansburgh folks, the floor is yours. I did text Mr. Bradley. He says I will try again. I'm not on, but it is not showing me on. So let me go back and forth with Aaron while you get started, okay?
No, that's great. And I just want to thank everybody for, letting us come back and present to you and just for your time for this, because you got to get it right. You got kind of, one shot at this right now, and we want to make sure you get the best fit. And we're hoping the model we're going to show you is the best fit. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay, and can everybody see that?
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
great. So, we're here today to show you a school that was worked very hard on in another community. And there's still, with going to Holyoke, we want this school to resonate with you. And so we're going to walk you through why we feel this is the best fit for your city. And we had a great tour last week, and I think it resonated some of the aspects. I think when you see it for your own eyes, it really takes hold. But we're going to walk you just through some of what we, well, first the team, but really what we feel is important for the project. When we were here previously presenting to you, we showed you kind of the floor plans and some of the design aspects. I'm going to do an abbreviated version of that and let George and Peter Bradley and Dave Pereira from GGD walk through some more logistics. So with that, here's our design team. We have George Cruz. He'll serve as the principal in charge and project manager. I'm Kent Kovacs. I'm the design principal. I designed the original school, and I will work with you through the visioning process and the MSBA process. We also have Naomi Levine as our project architect with Flansburgh, and Brian Jerez, who will work with our BIM management, which is going to be really important as a model school. So we want to hit the ground running and make sure that we have this model tested. And so when we go out to bid, that all our ducks are in a row. Here's our trusted team. You have seen this organization chart previously. And now your considerations. We're going to walk through why we think West Bridgewater is the best fit, cost, the building systems, and conceptual schedule. So we touched upon this last time. We understand your site. We've actually had more time to understand your site, and we've kind of double checked this. And so we feel even more confident that this is the best model. The West Bridgewater model can adapt to the Peck Middle School site. We understand the grade change. We understand that it's a tight site. You have a butters. And then, of course, it links to the high school kind of to the northwest. And here's a look at the site plan. The building is off to the left on this slide. And this just illustrates that we know you have a difficult site, but this presents challenges, but also opportunities. And over the last 3-4 weeks, we've been able to vet this out a little bit more. And we feel confident what we're presenting to you with costs and the design will fit right between the budget and the schedule. Here, as you see, this is the West Bridgewater model adapting to your site. We know it has a steep grade change from east to west and north to south. And we're doing some slight modifications to negotiate those grades. But we feel that this really works well. And I think an added benefit is locating the gymnasium that you'll see in the next slide at the upper level that's at the same elevation as your existing field helps to create a secondary access for after-school activities, a great adjacency, and then allows the rest of the building, the academic portion, to sit proper within the site. And so all the academic spaces you see here are at one level. And I'm going to go into further slides that will explain that. But here is a conceptual rendering of how that West Bridgewater model fits your site. So this is the main approach to the building. The media center with administration below. This is very important because this is who's coming and going within the school. And then the gymnasium is sited a level above that's adjacent to the existing field. And so this concept rendering shows our existing model school adapted to your site. So you see the gymnasium that's up 14 feet higher than the rest of the school. And this really is the main move for our model school. And this is what people and the students are going to experience as they come to your school. And I think it creates a great sense of arrival. I think it creates something unique to Holyoke and that you can be proud of. We spoke about this slide at the last presentation about some of the adjustments. And because there's no middle school model, this is the West Bridgewater Middle Senior High School. So it has a larger gymnasium, it has a performing arts center. And so on those diagrams that you see on the bottom of the slide, There's a rectangle over the left portion. That's where the auditorium and gym. So that needs to be reworked. But the academic area of all the general classrooms, the special education spaces, teacher planning, administration guidance, we feel aligns with what we saw in the RFS for this project. That we feel aligns with your educational plan. There will be some adjustments that will have to be made, but 2/3 of this building adapt exactly to your educational program, and we're confident of that. And just walking through the plans, this is the same plans that you had seen before. Oops, sorry, slide advanced a little bit. So on the first floor, you enter the building. We have administration and guidance at the front door. That's for supervision to see who's coming and going and for check-in. And then you go into a cafeteria, and that'll be more of a cafetorium with a stage beyond. And then we go into some of the enrichment spaces of art and band, the design lab that you have in your program. You've done a great job with your educational program for this project. And so there's a lot to work with. And then we go into traditional academic wings, of which we've incorporated distributed special education, teacher planning, breakout spaces, classrooms, and science labs. And I just want to take a moment to show how straightforward this plan is. So this shows how you enter the building on the southern side and how simple the circulation is. This is at one level. This is a 2-story building. So at the first level, it's a simple loop circulation around the building that connects those academic wings to what we call Main Street. So you enter the building, you're on Main Street with the cafeteria, there's the stage, and then you go into the academic wings. So for securing this building, it's very straightforward. And for students to navigate it, it's very straightforward. When we go to the second level, you see more of the academic wings. And here in some of the photos, and I'll point out, there's a bit of a difference between the first floor academic wings that are at one story with a 10-foot ceiling, and then a little bit different on the upper level. So you can imagine some of the younger learners being on the first floor and some of the older learners being on the second, and get a little bit of a different architectural experience. What I want to point out here is the gymnasium will be located at the second level because we're negotiating the topography of your site. Not too different from what you currently have, but the gymnasium could have the opportunity to have a separate entrance, and you could lock that off from the rest of the building for extended community use. You could have elevator access, an entry, toilet core, and have the gymnasium component as a self-contained entity. And that's accessed through the second level, which is not uncommon for a lot of public school projects we've been working on. This would have access to an outdoor play and athletic area to the left of the gymnasium. And then when we look at the simple circulation through this floor plan, again, we're only doing 2 stories here. It's a simple loop with egress. And here we're noting a potential secondary gymnasium entry. And then the elevator connects that. So looking at the site and our building and the way we're to adapt that, we feel that this is straightforward. We see a lot of flexibility. It's easy to monitor for after-school activities. And it's one of the reasons West Bridgewater is a great fit for your site. And I just want to walk you through, if you didn't go on the tour, of just what this building looks like. And this is the main entrance. We have the media center with the administration front and center with this tower element. And that really orients people to where the front door is. And then we have this from West Bridgewater. We have this great academic wing that responds to the scale of the neighborhood. And here's a look. We love using brick. It's economical. But here you see some landscape incorporated with the brick. We sloped some of the roofs where we could, and that faces the residential neighborhood. So all the residents were very pleased that the new school was scale appropriate and fit in with the character of the surroundings. Now going to the inside of the building, here's the cafeteria. And this really is the hub of the school. It's not a separate room. It connects everything. And so the media center is beyond. This is how you access the gymnasium, the auditorium, and the servery for the cafeteria. And what's great here is off to the left is the outdoor classroom. And what's really important here is the program that will work together establishing around that outdoor classroom, makerspace, science rooms, different type of project-oriented spaces can be off of that outdoor classroom. And so you extend the learning environment outdoors and take advantage of that. That's very important, and that's what West Bridgewater did here. We had this area at the top of the cafeteria called the Cyber Cafe. It's a great hangout nook, and we want to capture these spaces because it should be not necessarily rooms off a corridor, but an experience throughout. So wherever we can capture learning spaces or breakout spaces, that's what we want to do. Here's a look at the STEM Commons. This is a great space that's part of the plan. It connects art rooms with maker spaces, with science labs, and it's a great area that gives students independence. So that was just a summary of kind of what was presented last time with a little bit more imagery, and now we'll go into the HVAC system and sustainability. And David, if you'd want to take off.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks, Ken. I think there was a slide before this. Or is this?
No, this is it. Yep.
All right. So we wanted to talk about, there's a few things. So from an MEP standpoint, what it would mean to take the 2014 design and apply it to the current project that will be all electric. From an electrical standpoint, the service size would increase by about 20%. And the generator would, if freeze protection is a requirement of the building, which I suspect it would double in size. But those are not major things that we can't overcome. Lighting controls would need to meet the latest energy code requirements with lower LPD, with some new vacancy sensing requirements and switched receptacles. So there's some updated energy code items that we would accommodate in the job. So the West Bridgewater example, which was a 2014 design, utilized displacement ventilation, gas-fired rooftop units with DX cooling, and induction units in the administration areas and perimeter hot water radiant panels. If we were to adapt that similar system, of course, we would still need to perform a life cycle cost analysis and go through the selection process. Big picture, the way we would look at it is the distribution system could remain mostly the same, with the addition of VAVs for each space, with for better temperature control and energy efficiency that we didn't have in West Bridgewater. We didn't have the VAVs there. The rooftop units would need to be changed to either air source heat pump type, or you could use an air source to hydronic heat pump type as a central plant. Induction units, we could replace those with hydronic heat pump systems as a central plant. So generally, the distribution system can be similar, but you can see that there are major differences in the system equipment, which is why we would go through the system selection process. So actually, yeah, that was a slide comparing the model school to the William Peck School. So those are the systems I talked about. So the major plant systems would change. And a successful high performance design requires, collaboration with the design team and the client, understanding the system options. If you want to go back to the previous slide. Yeah, there we go. All right. Understanding the system options and the technologies available. So what we do is in this process, we explain the pros and cons of each system to the client and make sure. Our goal is to ensure that the facilities department is comfortable with that required maintenance and the operation of these solutions. As you can see, as of July 2023, the 10th edition of the code will be adopted, which puts us in the IECC 2021 code and introduces even more energy requirements, such as TEDI limits, which is a new measure of performance, accounting for heating and cooling demand, as well as efficiency. rather than using building usage, which is measured in EUI. There's new energy recovery requirements, air infiltration requirements, and thermal bridging requirements. So these are all, although these are new requirements, we've been involved in several high performance design and net zero projects that already included similar measures to obtain that level of efficiency. So we utilize life cycle cost analysis and energy modeling to study the first operating maintenance costs of the different HVAC options. That would include, air source, water source. We could look at variable flow refrigerant, even geothermal heat pump systems. We'll look at the metrics such as TEDI, EUI, maintenance and replacement costs. However, it is always important to ensure that the selected system maintains a high indoor air quality and thermal comfort, for the end user. That's something that we don't want to lose sight of. So we will provide this information to the client in a format that's clear and simple to compare. And we're confident that, we'll make the best decision for the project. And so generally we can use similar distribution systems. We'll still have to study the different options for the systems, and we'll, go over that with you guys in detail.
Great. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
And then just building off of that, with sustainability, overall sustainability, we want to make sure that we watch stormwater, energy efficiency, water conservation, and material selection. So this is just things we do because it's the right thing to do. And if you're going after LEED or CHIPS, which you are, we will incorporate that as well. So with that, George, if you want to take it off for Flansburgh's history with cost control.
Thanks. As David had alluded to, we're going to be looking at both capital cost as well as long-term maintenance and operation costs, not only for the HVAC, but all the systems that are in the building, whether that be the roof, the windows, the facade. Every dollar needs to be vetted for a municipal project or any project to maintain the budget. We've been very diligent in doing this. And as you can see, our average costs of schools are within the industry average. And we're pretty proud of that. And we feel that we can bring that expertise to your project. Next slide. Now, I don't think Peter got on board, so I will.
Yeah, he's here, George.
All right, great.
He's here.
Sorry, I'm here.
Masquerading as Amy Happ, but I can tell you it's not Amy Happ.
The gremlins were not kind to me tonight with getting on. But
Peter Bradley's our go-to estimator. He has a good handle on the market and where these projects will end up at the end of the day. And Peter, if you could take us through the cost of the trade work and the contingencies and the overhead and profits.
Hi, everybody. On this project, we try to get a little jump in terms of doing a little more investigative pricing than we would typically do. But given that we, had worked on the model schools before with Flansburgh, and we had worked on the PEC school sites previously, what we did was we updated our estimate that we prepared originally for the site, which you'll see the 5,888,000 number is taking that estimate and updating for current pricing. And then we updated the building cost based on what we've seen in escalation, since we did the West Bridgewater Model School. And then on top of that, we added contingencies and escalation to take us to a approximate construction start of the middle of 2026. So that's the escalation you see in there, 14.2%, and come up with a construction cost here of the 72.3 million, approximately. Obviously, we'll be doing detailed estimates going forward, but this is our starting point. And just to kind of give you an overview of order of magnitude where we would expect the cost to be when the project is actually bid in 2026.
Thank you, Peter. I'm going to just take us quickly through a couple of schedules. Based on any information we've gathered, we're looking at a February start where we would take 3 to 4 months and complete the schematic design phase. At that point in time, you would have the schematic design estimate in hand for the city council vote to move forward into construction documents, as well as bidding and construction. So this particular schedule includes the demolition with the general contractor as one contract. That's 22 months of construction and allows you 3 months to occupy the building. We have to bring in the new furniture, the new technology, kitchen equipment, get everybody up to speed on how the systems run. And that has a potential April vacation move-in for the school. Our next slide talks about what if we completed an early site package. Again, the schematic design and the demolition drawings could be developed simultaneously. They will both have estimates associated with them and give the information to the city council for their vote. Moving forward, you would actually bid the demolition section and complete the demolition simultaneously while we're doing the construction documents. This way, the demolition is complete. By the time the second contractor comes on board, he has a very clean site. We've closed out the original demolition contractor, and this has a 19-month duration. So we saved 3 months on construction, and we're able to move in for November break and Thanksgiving of 2025. And we have done these projects, whether it's Chapter 149, 149A. We work very closely with the community in terms of logistics. Where does the construction fencing go? How do we work with police, fire, and DPW to make sure that traffic patterns for construction vehicles do not impact the neighborhood? We want to ensure that all the contractors are parking within the construction fence and not in the neighborhood, impeding parking and other events. We like to set up a website and try to have a 3-week look ahead from the contractor on that site so people know what activities are going to take place. Unfortunately, construction can be loud, and at least making everyone aware and touch base with the neighbors is extremely important to Flansburgh to make sure that the project moves along smoothly. Beyond that, we would obviously manage the construction process, answer all the contractors' questions, review change orders, review any adjustments from the owner in terms of design, implement all those changes, and make sure that the quality of the product is in line with the documents. With that.
That's great, George. And I just want to say, I think one of the reasons why this is a model is all that's been vetted out. We've been through this process once before. This has been built. I would go back even further than the construction side, that educationally, we had a great group to work with that cared about their students. And I just want to share a 1.5-minute video that might have been shared with the group of the West Bridgewater, with the superintendent giving some background to that. Can everybody see this?
Wanted to have a collegiate college-like atmosphere. With that
No, we see your slide still.
Open floor
All right,
plan.
let me stop
They also
sharing.
wanted something that would be flexible and adaptable over time.
I'll try to do it one more time.
We can hear it.
Yeah, we can hear it.
Well, that's the important part. Let me close this out. How about now?
The town wanted to have a collegiate college-like atmosphere feel with that campus center style building with the open floor plan. They also wanted something that would be flexible and adaptable over time. And the third thing, which was the most important, and it's the most important because we're in a small community, was to keep the small school feel, but have big school opportunities. I think the best part of it was working with Flansburgh, that they listened to us, they listened to the community, and then they planned the building just as we wanted it in the community. It's really better than we could have imagined. You know, our kids are going to get the same playing field as everyone else, and they deserve it. And we do great things in West Bridgewater, but this is just going to put them over the top. I'm going to be able to do so much more for them. So just being in this community for so long, it's really nice to be able to be a part of this and to be able to give this to the kids of West Bridgewater.
So that concludes our presentation. We'll open up for any Q&A you might have, but I just want to just kind of emphasize again, this is a model school. It's a project that we are very happy to work with this team, with Dave and Peter Bradley years ago, but it resonates. And that's why it is a model school, and that's why it's presented to you. And there will be some items and kind of adaptions that makes it unique to Holyoke, and we're very proud of this one. And so we'll open it up to you. Thank you very much.
So I'm gonna call on folks. I see Dave has his hand up. Dave, and then I see Jamie. Dave, can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, it's a little tricky on my phone. Yeah, I got three questions now. The square footage I have is 105,840. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and do you have a? I think George mentioned both procurement methods, 149A and 149. Do you have a preference for one or the other with this project?
I think looking at this site, George, you can jump in after me. I think previously we presented both. We feel both methods can be delivered on this site successfully. So they are both options. One's more cost effective on the front end, but we wouldn't price out both if we didn't feel they both could be delivered.
I think the difference is you need to talk within the community. You have CM at Risk, which is more a collaborative process. They become part of the team, versus Chapter 149, where you're bringing in somebody from the outside. He's unknown. He's looking to make every dollar count. So either way, we've managed both projects very successfully, and certainly can bring that experience to bear in Holyoke.
Can I just chime in and add, because this came up when we were visiting the school, that West Bridgewater, the building you just shared, was done design bid build, and with I think some challenges, but done successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and my third question, more of a design question. I see a lot of glass in that, in that model. Could that be adjusted? I'm just thinking that, that much it might impact the energy efficiency. Would it be very costly to adjust that, or?
Nope, absolutely not. It's one thing that we'd bring up with the group right from the get-go. Back in the day, we used to look at in a building code with 35% glass, but our Ashland Elementary School that we just released, that's under construction now, got down to a very small amount of glass. Still met the requirement for natural light, but when it came to running the energy model, it helped leaps and bounds. So yes, we would expect to reduce the glass of the West Bridgewater model.
All right, thank you.
So Jamie, you're up.
Hi, thanks, Margaret. And I might need your help on, I'm going to ask about the dehumidification system, which your knowledge is a lot more vast and your explanation of it is better than mine. But in touring schools, one of the schools we toured had and I have two questions, so I'll be brief. One of them had a dehumidification system in addition to the HVAC system. And, you know, we had talked amongst the group and with Margaret, and that could be a huge potential cost savings. And the design of it was nice. And from speaking with the other school we toured with that system, they said they saw very little climate change from, you know, the dehumidified sections and the AC section. So is that something that you'd be willing to look at? And forgive me if I didn't see it, David, in your HVAC models, because I'm not too familiar with it. I'm learning about it now, but it's definitely, as we're looking at cost savings for this project, it's one of the things that could be substantial.
Yeah, that's if you don't mind, Kent, if I could take that one. That's certainly something that we look at from a system selection standpoint. What you're referring to is dehumidification versus full air conditioning.
Correct.
And generally all that is, it's meeting the ASHRAE standard of cooling, whether it's to 75 degrees on a design day or 72 degrees on a design day. And we have had a lot of success with, they also call it green AC, which is another name for it, which is you're still air conditioning per se, because you're wringing out the humidity and then delivering air. You're wringing out the humidity, reheating it, and delivering it at a temperature that can meet the 75 degrees versus the 72. And generally, you're pretty comfortable. You reduce ductwork sizes, you reduce unit sizes. So there is certainly cost savings to that.
Okay, great. And that's something that you guys could fit into the plan and estimate out and show us.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then my second question, unless there's something else you guys want to talk about, the dehumidification. If not, I'll just move on to my second question. So
as long as I answered your question.
Didn't the West Bridgewater have dehumidification? Right. Okay. Okay.
It was displacement ventilation to 75 degrees. So,
but I didn't see it in that plan that showed ours, and I'm not sure if it was incorporated in one of those systems. So I just wanted to touch upon it.
Yeah.
Secondly, about classroom size. So from your presentation, you estimated the average classroom size to be 925 square feet. And I think that's going to fall a little short of our specific needs in Holyoke, just because as we had discussed, we have a lot of different issues. We have a lot of ESL. Some of our classrooms could have multiple teachers and multiple paras where, you know, some students in the back. So you had said 3/4 of the design, the West Bridgewater would fit, and we have room to, you know, make some adjustments. Would classroom size be one of those adjustments that we could make?
You can make that adjustment. So we based the West Bridgewater model school on your space template at 105,840. That's what was in the original template. So that has the larger classrooms, but there is an opportunity, if you want to be more efficient, to decrease those classrooms. And I know when we toured West Bridgewater, you saw that the 24 students could fit, you know, adequately within those. So there's an opportunity to reduce the square footage here. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but the design that we're presenting right now, we would modify West Bridgewater for the larger classrooms. But we want to have a conversation with you if we could pull those back, because we do feel with 850 square feet, you can deliver adequate space for a general classroom. Right now, most of your general classrooms are in the 900 plus range.
And I think the dynamic of West Bridgewater compared to the dynamic of Holyoke, they're two very different communities. And just to give the committee a little bit of background, we found out that West Bridgewater has, I think, I don't know, 1/4 of their population is actual students from other communities going in as school of choice, where we're the complete opposite, where our students are going to other communities as school of choice. So we're very different needs wise. You know, the building is definitely beautiful and would work, but our our community schematics are very different. So
Yeah.
it's just something that, obviously would all get worked into the final plan.
And so right now, the cost that you saw in that estimate is based on aligning with your current PEC template with larger classrooms.
Okay, thank you.
Mr.
I see Whitney.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate your presentation, and on your financial page, Kent, perhaps one of your team could reflect on the 14.2% escalation factor. How much of a time duration does that represent?
Peter,
yes, I'll take this one. It's Peter Bradley. I put together the estimate. So I think in the various slides, there was some options to accelerate the delivery of the school. When we did our estimate, we were taking more of a conservative approach with the escalation, looking at a 2026 escalating out to, approximately, midpoint of the construction. There are other opportunities to, to reduce that, by starting earlier. So our escalation was built upon, an escalation for this year, and an escalation for 24, and then for 25, and partially for 26. That's how we built up the 14.2%.
So we would take the 14.2 and divide it by 3.5 or so?
No, it's a sliding scale because, obviously last year we saw, significant escalation somewhere in the 15% range. We're forecasting this year would be in the 6% range. That's 2023. And then 24 and 25 would go to what we would consider typical escalation for construction, which would be, in the 2.5 to 3% range per year, which is, what it has been typically on a 10-year average. We would certainly not expect, 15% this year the way that we've seen last year. But obviously, escalation, as we all know, is a very volatile market right now in terms of trying to predict where we are.
And the base rate of that calculation, the 56 million, where did that come from?
So that came from we estimated the previous PEC project. So we took the site costs that we had prepared and we did a detailed escalation, of those unit prices based on today's number to come up with a site cost. And then we took a building cost, a typical building cost that we're seeing today, adjusted for the West Bridgewater model school that we worked on, and came up with a building cost for that at $415 a square foot. And so the site and the building cost and some demo and hazmat numbers that's the basis of the 53 million, which is, the sort of the direct cost.
Yeah, I just want to add. So Peter was the estimator for Jones Woodson, which is why he's familiar with the site and had those numbers at his fingertips. So Peter, it hadn't occurred to me that you would be able to do that. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, we figured we would, instead of just trying to guess at the site numbers, we would escalate based on, the information that we had already available.
You know a lot about it.
Yeah, and we also did the West Bridgewater School, but obviously that was 2013. So that's it's hard to kind of extrapolate that number.
Okay, I see Erin Brunel has her hand up, and I see Anthony has his hand up.
Speaking of those escalation numbers, it sounded like you were talking about the real estate market. Or like the same escalation numbers. One of my questions is just regarding construction in general. Are we still seeing delays in construction materials? If you ran into a delay with a specific material, do you have the contingency built in to be able to change materials? How are you guys seeing, the supply pipeline going these days?
The industry still is experiencing some supply chain issues. It's getting a little tighter to certain projects, like switch gear that's coming out of Mexico is very, very slow, and roofing insulation. So what we've allowed to do, even though we have 3 products listed for everything in the specifications, we've allowed the contractors to shop around and providing or equal to that, so they can mitigate some of those supply chain issues. We also see a lot of materials being bought early. So roof insulation that's not needed for 6 months, but they're buying it now, storing it either in a warehouse or on site. So not only they capture the current costs, but they also have mitigated their supply chain issues. So we see a lot of contractors now have gotten to the point where they can manipulate the supply chain and make sure they have materials on time.
Awesome. And then just a follow-up to that, I guess, would be like, do you guys have other schools projects under construction now that you're, ordering materials for, or things like that, where like, do you piggyback and order twice as much, because you have 2 projects going to save a little bit of money? Is that something that can typically happen within these kinds of projects?
They're all individual projects with separate contractors, so we can't do that. But just to kind of what George is saying, we're seeing things level out a little bit with some trades, but on the electrical trades and even on the site contractor trades, it fluctuates. So just going back to your first question, yeah, we have some flexibility with, I would say, exterior materials a bit, but not when it comes to hard infrastructure. The hard infrastructure with electrical and mechanical is we can't switch that out in the middle. As George says, we have a couple projects out right now where we're getting this firsthand, and those contractors bought out their roofs early because they could kind of read between the lines a little bit. But any changes to electrical, which we do have projects where the contractor came to us and said, can you please have your team reevaluate this because we're having a hard time getting this delivered. We're hoping by the time this project kind of flushes out, things might level out a little bit, but we can't tell you that.
Yeah, and Ken, if I could just piggyback on the electrical and switchgear and some of the mechanical equipment. We have been trying to stay ahead, and if there's an opportunity to pre-purchase a piece of gear that we anticipate having like a year to 18 months lead time, we've been doing that. And that's actually, from a CM at risk standpoint, might give you a little flexibility there to do some pre-purchasing. But yeah, we're watching that, and as Kent said, we're hoping that it gets a little bit better by the time we get to this project.
The question that I had was, this committee has been used to seeing cost, total project cost as a broken down by square footage. So like, I know I saw the slide where it breaks down the total cost, but what would that be?
So
the project
for the total project
square footage,
cost,
yeah.
You would typically add 20 to 25% to this cost. So
no, what I'm saying is we had been talking about costs in terms of square footage. So there were numbers thrown out there like $550 per square foot. There were numbers around 700. Like, what is the cost that you shared? I didn't see that number.
Yeah.
$683.78.
683. Okay.
And that's an escalated number, obviously. So the current, if you took that to today's dollars, it would be, somewhere just over 600. That's just, because we got to escalate it out to the,
and that also includes the demolition.
Yes.
The abatement. So that's definitely the scope that you want to be thinking of as the full scope of the project. So
for construction costs, yes.
For construction costs, right.
Thank you.
So I'm not seeing any other hands at this point, and we're actually at 5. We're right where we want to be. So I want to, if nobody, one more in case anybody's got any questions, but I'm going to give them a chance to wrap up so everybody can have a little break before we start the next one. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to turn this over to the Flansburgh team to wrap up.
I'll just be brief. I'm just happy to present this to you. We're proud of the school. We think it can adapt well to your site and save you some money. And it's been tested previously. And the reason why we're sitting here is the MSBA and everybody associated with that felt the same with its flexibility. George, you want to add something when it comes down to how you feel about cost and schedule?
Well, again, we feel that we're pretty good at managing the cost and managing the schedule and informing the community as well as the committee on everything. Obviously, today is a concept levels estimate and some concept schedules. Those, once, if we were on board, would certainly be solidified and adhered to so that you have a good comfort level on how we're starting and how we're going to end at the end of the project, and incorporate all of the various materials, furniture, technology, security. Every aspect of the building would be scheduled and developed into the building itself.
We thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
You.
It's great to see you guys.
Thank you.
Beautiful building. So, okay, so we're gonna decompress and reconvene in a few minutes to hear from Mount Vernon.
Thank you very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate the time.
Thanks.
I'm gonna stay on the screen in case anybody does have a question before we start back up. So.
Hey, Margaret, the reason I asked that question, because didn't the first time they presented, didn't they come in at around 550 or something like that? Or was that Mount Vernon? Am I thinking of Mount Vernon?
It was Mount Vernon.
Okay.
And it was kind of unspecified what was in that number, which is why.
Right. That's why I was asking, and
No,
that's why I'm going to continue to come back to that square footage number.
Yeah, and Aaron, thank you for asking them to send the presentation to me. So when we get to the discussion piece, I'll be able to pull it back up. I didn't move fast enough to take a snip of it. So thank you, Mark Lubold, for having captured that number in your head, because I did not capture it.
I got screen caps of just about everything too for you, Margaret.
Well, yeah, that's why Ksenia's here, because she's like 5 steps ahead of me all the time.
I did the math. I just wasn't, I was confused why it was higher than the 550 or what. I forgot what it was, but it was in the 500 range.
Yeah.
But I just got the designs confused.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see, based on asking for more accurate figures, what Mount Vernon comes in at.
Well, and I just for background, there's sort of these two estimators, and they're both called Peter. So you've met Peter Bradley. Now with Mount Vernon Group, you're going to meet Pete Timothy, and they are sort of the dueling estimators on most MSBA projects. So it's actually great that you're going to see them both tonight. But that's what they do. I just last week sat through an 8-hour reconciliation with both of them on our Amherst project. So they're very knowledgeable, thoughtful guys, and it's not easy to get them to spend an hour in their evening in an interview. So I can only imagine what sort of inducements were offered. You should have explained, Aaron, that you're a realtor.
I know, I should have given some context to that, but I swear to God, he could have been easily talking about the real estate market.
Yeah, I mean, it's the market for everything.
Yeah, inflation's inflation. It's
the built
different stuff you buy,
Yeah, exactly. So,
all right, I'm gonna run to the restroom. I'll be right back.
Margaret?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Of course.
Yeah, you mentioned something after they asked for the square footage about, you said another 10 or 20% over that cost. Did you?
So what we're
the total?
talking about here are the construction costs, I believe.
Right.
The slide. Yeah. So there are also what are called soft costs, which are fees for the designer, the owner's project manager, and it's all the stuff you paid to do the work, essentially.
Okay.
And so that is typically 20 to 20% of the construction cost.
Okay, so if the costs are 700 or 100 million, be 20% of that?
Yeah.
Okay, and that's added on to that then?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so in this case, if you added 20% to the 72 million, you'd be at 86.4.
Margaret, I have kind of a question for you too. When we're getting into 149 and 149A, and if we're going to do design bid bill or CM at risk, what are we proposing to present to the group? Kind of both approaches, pros and cons. Like, how do we select what type of procurement we're going to use around this?
Well, I think what will happen in this case, once the designer is selected, one of the very first things we're going to talk about is we will have a meeting where I will present and we will discuss, and we've already done this a little bit, but I will certainly we'll kind of devote a meeting to this. And at that meeting or in a subsequent meeting, you're required to take a vote that officially makes this decision. So we want to do it fairly.
I think there needs to be education around it, though, obviously. Because
absolutely, yeah. So I have a presentation that I will make. Like I said, we'll spend an hour or so talking about it. In fact, Dave Yost and I had a conversation about it earlier today. So if anybody wants to talk to me about it offline, it's important in this case to do it early because the schematic design process in all of these versions will go quickly, and the MSBA wants to know when you make your schematic design submission and it is reflected in the overall schedule for the project, what that looks like.
Do you mind sending me your presentation just so I can look at it from my knowledge of both approaches as well?
I have a presentation I made in Amherst a couple of months ago. Jamie, I'm a little reluctant to share it with just one person.
Okay.
But maybe we can find a place that on a Google Drive where everybody can see it. You just need to sort of know it wasn't for this project, it was for a recent project in the area.
Okay.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, Margaret, I appreciate our conversation this morning. Would we be able to get some estimates before we took the vote on which method?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be able to present what the estimates, what the difference is, what these two estimators, the two, Peter Bradley and Pete Timothy, are estimating right now in terms of difference in cost. And actually, it's a little bit embedded in the presentation. As I said to Dave earlier today, I think a really big issue, it's hard to do chapter 149 if you have a really hard, like we have to have it done this day, because you have less control over schedule. And I'd say that's in this situation, it's probably one of the differentiators, and the other differentiator is there is some real cost associated with using a CM. So those are, I would say, the pros and cons from what I know of your project. All right, so Erin Brunel.
Yes, ma'am.
So have we got our folks joining soon?
Yeah, there's quite a few off camera, so it's hard to know if they're back or not. Here we go. Yep, we're here.
There we go. Here they come.
Stop chewing.
I let in 3 people from Mount Vernon Group.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello. So who we got here?
Well, Dennis, I'm here.
Excellent. Good evening, Dennis.
Hi, hi, Margaret. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Now, I see that our slideshow is up and
You're wondering who did that, right?
well, yeah, because I don't see anybody from my team. But I'm sure.
I am here, Naomi Cottrell.
Oh, Naomi's here.
Yeah, Naomi is here. Frank is here.
I'm here. Okay.
William Thies
Yeah.
is here.
Yep.
Okay.
Great.
Well,
So we're
you know what? I just want to, as we did last time, first of all, thanks again. Thanks for coming back. We're just going to, before we launch, we're going to just quickly go around the room and kind of reintroduce ourselves to you. So I'm just going to call names. Mayor Garcia.
Hey, good evening. Welcome back. Joshua Garcia, Mayor here in the city.
And Whitney Anderson.
Good evening, Whitney Anderson, Maintenance Administrator with Mr. Collibor.
Mark Lugold.
From the school board.
Thank you, Mr. Collymore.
How you doing, Mark Lubold? I volunteer on the school building committee. I had the great opportunity to visit your school, and I appreciate you coming back for the second interview.
Thanks.
Jamie Mara.
Hi, I'm Jamie Morrow. I am the Assistant Chief Procurement Officer with the City of Holyoke, and I was able to tour the school as well.
Jessica Perella.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I am a parent of 4 elementary age children in Holyoke, and I am a student myself.
Raina Lorenzi.
Hello, I'm Raina. Thank you for coming again. I'm part of the building committee and I can't wait to see what you guys have. Thanks.
Thank you.
Peter Tallman.
Good evening, Mount Vernon Group. Peter Tallman, City Council at Large, and I'm also a member of the Finance Committee and looking forward to hearing what you have to say tonight.
Deborah Vega.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. My name is Deborah Vega. I serve on this building committee and I am also a parent.
Kathy Ortiz.
Hi, my name is Kathy Ortiz. I am a volunteer from this school building committee, and thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Jackie Glasheen.
Hi, Jackie Glasheen, Executive Director of School Leadership and parent of a senior at Holyoke High.
Superintendent Soto.
Hi, Anthony Soto, Superintendent here, Holyoke Public Schools. Thank you for coming back.
And last but not least, Erin Brunell.
Hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. My name is Erin Brunell. I am school committee member at large and privileged to be vice chair of this working group.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to turn over to Mount Vernon Group. Take it away.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having us back. It's great to be back in Holyoke, if it's only virtually. Hope to get there in person soon again. Again, I'm Frank Tedesco. I'd be the principal in charge of the project. We have with us Dennis.
Hi, I'm Dennis Daly. I'm design principal, and I'll be in charge of the design and planning for the school.
And I'm Naomi Cottrell with Crowley Cottrell Landscape Architecture.
Great, thank you. Yeah, our project manager who is Chris LeBlanc, and he had a long previously scheduled vacation, so he gives his regrets, and we'll try to cover for him. Okay, so again, we're Mount Vernon Group. We'll go to the next slide, and we did the model school in Marlborough, which some of you came, and you mentioned that earlier, and everybody seemed to like it. It is a beautiful school, and I'm glad that you were able to see it and see it in action. There's a very animated principal there. She's really excited about the project and has been. When they first hired her, we were just beginning construction, and she came to every construction meeting, so she knows every nook and cranny in that school. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. We have basically an overview of what it looks like completed. This is the actual model school here, and it's been modified to fit your needs in our designs, but that's pretty much what it would be. We also say the exterior, we can work with you on design of that if you have some other elements you'd like to see, but the form of the school would be similar to this. Okay. And courtyard also is something we can talk about and design and meet more of your needs of what you might like to see in that courtyard. And Naomi will talk about that shortly. Dennis?
Yes, thanks, Frank. What you see here is the first floor plan. We went through this with you on the last meeting, and as we stated, we tried to group the grades appropriately in teams, and 2 6th grade teams on the lower bar there, you see, and 2 7th grade teams on the upper part. They're joined in the front by the administrative spaces as well as some special spaces. And you'll see in the back, it says unexcavated, and that this is one of the opportunities that the existing site gave us to do that fits very nicely with the model school. What we're able to do when we go to the second floor, you'll see that we can put on the second floor the gymnasium, cafeteria, music, other specials on a floor that will feature the 8th grade directly above the 7th, and then our innovation hub, which would include the media center, the art room, technical classroom, technical labs, and also the STE room for the 6th grade. Also in that wing, we can put the fitness space for the public just adjacent to the gymnasium with its own entry without having to enter the school. So it will still stay within the public realm. And because of the nature of the site, we're able to put that up on the second floor and make it more easily accessible to the playfields behind. We go to the next slide. And this shows the elevations. As pointed out before, the south elevation, which you see on the bottom of the screen, is a representation using the Marlborough sort of bits and pieces in terms of materials to illustrate how it fits on the site. This is coming up from the south to where the parent drop-off would be. And as you can see, it rises up to the level of 5 feet below the playfields, which is where the gymnasium will be. The front elevation, or the east elevation, is shown at the top of the page. And it features a covered area for children to wait for the buses and their parents before and after school out of the weather. The other 2 elevations serve to illustrate in the rear how that second floor opens out. And you'll also notice that those are the 2-story spaces, the high spaces, gymnasium and cafeteria, and they'll open out directly onto the high level adjacent to the playfields with just a 4 to 5 foot difference. And again, you can see how our sculpting, and Naomi will get into that, sculpting of the landscape will allow this to happen. That's, you can also see reflected on the north elevation. Naomi?
Yeah. So we showed some of these site sections last time we came to you, but wanting to put in a little bit more detail on the bit in the building to show you how it does relate to the site. And we really like to think about the opportunities that the site has to offer as opposed to the constraints. I mean, there is a grade change, but it gives us the opportunity to be able to do some interesting things in the landscape. Unlike the model school, every site is different. And so we will work together to figure out how we can compose the landscape in a way that not only fits within the surroundings, but really brings those opportunities. So in the upper elevation, you are seeing, again, cross section, the cut through the building that shows the gym on the left-hand side, and the entrance on the east side. We're showing parking and the entry plinth. I'm going to go ahead and slide. Hugo, or sorry, whoever's from Mount Vernon Group, can I actually ask to have my, it's not letting me control your screen, and maybe that's just because of the way the nature of the Zoom call, but if you could
I think the host may have
on
to.
the cursor.
Yeah, the host has to do the pointing, Naomi.
Okay, so William, if you can run the cursor on the entry side on the east. So we would have the entry side on the east here. What we are able to do with the site plan is create a level plane that goes around 3 sides of the building. We call this the plinth, and it would allow for accessible entrances all on this first floor plan. What then we can do is we're creating a shift, and the grade changes with a series of retaining walls and slopes up to the second level of the plinth, which is the level of the gymnasium. We are able to provide for site circulation by putting in accessible paths that go from the upper level at the gym to slice up to the fields. And we're able to do the same between the parking lot and that northern side. So these accessible walkways that we're showing in the plan would all be accessible and just be sloped walks. But we are able to then have site circulation to get to all of the buildings in an accessible way. There is this kit of parts that I want to talk about in the landscape, which is different from the building. You've been able to see the model school in person, but the kit of parts, again, is different for every site. So some of the things that we would employ here, again, to create site circulation, to really give character to the place. One thing is these accessible sloped paths, which we know we'll need to have and can have all kinds of different expression. This would be where we would work with you creatively to figure out what is the character of the landscape? How are we going to slice in these accessible routes so that they're interesting and functional? Go ahead to the next slide. The building will have this landing, and some of it will be covered and some of it will be open. But we like the idea of thinking about this landing around the building, this plinth that's all at one elevation, and how we can articulate it to do more for you than just be entrances. So we would work with you on figuring out where are those special moments for gathering, knowing that middle schoolers like to hang with each other. I'm a proud mother of an 8th grader right now who loves to hang. And so providing for places for people to sit and to gather, to see and be seen is an important part of what the landing around the building can do. Go to the next slide. The courtyard, again, is another real great opportunity that the model school will afford you. And there's all kinds of ways that this can be used. And so we like to think about it as extending your educational offerings at the school. And some of these are projects that we've worked with schools on to really have, again, an expression that's unique. And whether it's highly functional, like raised beds for planting, or whether it's something that's more expressive and fun, that's really going to be what we would work with you all on. Next slide. And finally, again, we're going to be having a series of terraces and stepping down from, the field to the school, then to the parking areas, and then finally leading to the dingle. And all of those grade changes give us the opportunity to sculpt the land. And we know that we'll need to tackle stormwater management, and we have experience, especially the slide to the lower left is a Concord Academy that we've worked on for several years in Concord, Mass. This is a rain garden at their science building that we designed that's part of the curriculum. So stormwater is a great thing that we can express, and it can become a unique educational offering, whether that's out in the parking lots between the parking bays, or whether it's something that's expressed right at the building itself. There are lots of opportunities, and it is something we have to tackle, so we could figure out with you how we do that in a way that's both educational and beautiful.
These are the schedules. It was asked to show on the top. We have the schedule that we used for the Marlboro model. It was begun at late 2017, actually began in December, and they occupied in 2019 in June of that year, and then the following September they went in. So we had an early site package that's on the top chart. That's the second little chart below, to get that site work about 4.5 months done before the actual main construction started. It went very quickly. The second slide we're showing is the early site package that, plan that we put together for this project. And you can see it as a similar configuration, and we would expect to have it completed at around July, August of 2025. So you'd be able to occupy that year in September. The third one shows, as asked in the questionnaire, that if we didn't do the early site package and went out together, so you'd be doing site and the building, it brings you toward the end of 2025, December and maybe even into January. So we would probably assess that, and I'm quite confident we'd be able to get in January, but it would be pretty tight of 2026. So those are the things, and we can go to the next slide. Those are the schedules. This slide, it was asked that the estimator come, but he did, or send a letter, which he did to me. We discussed this, and he had estimated the Marlboro project. That came in at $333 a square foot in June of 2018. Today, he extrapolating that, he said it would be $444 a square foot. And then if we project that a little bit further into the beginning of when we'd be going out to bid, which would be the beginning of next year, approximately, that would be about $460 or $470 a square foot. So we're using, go to the next slide. I tried to do, the questions, trying to get the price. So I have to extrapolate from things that we know and things that were in your original estimate. It was done on the Jones Windsor, and then extrapolate some things. For example, the site cost. Let's go down. First is demolition. That's a pretty, speaking to our demo consultant, that would be about $8 a square foot. It's fairly straightforward building to demolish. Now, you would be slated for 80% reimbursement. We know that they just exclude certain things, but it's minor. So we'll have it at 80 as the possible maximum. And then that the MSBA reimbursement on the 1.4 million be about 1.132, and leaving your share, or Holyoke share, at 284,000. For abatement, pretty much the same, about $9 a square foot. Again, you're eligible to 80% with some exclusions. One in particular is the floor tiles, but those are fairly inexpensive to remove, especially when the building is empty. And your share would be 346,000 under that scenario. Now the site, I extrapolated from what the detailed site estimates at Jones Windsor. Ours would be similar, and I through Seamus Hennessy added 5%, because site costs have not gone up nearly as much as building costs. And so therefore, we are calculating your reimbursement in the new way, which is $39 a square foot, not of the site, but of the building. And they allow, which would be 4,346,000 reimbursement on the 5.8. So it's 80%. You're getting pretty close to that. And your net would be 1,454,000. The final is the big one, which is the building cost. And that's the thing that's been escalating. So we're using 460 based on Seamus's conservative estimate. So that means that if, what is your reimbursement from MSBA on that is 80%, not of the 460, but of $393 a square foot, because they cap the amount. And that's the reason why people don't get their true amount, is this thing right here. So that means your reimbursement will be approximately, on this building of 51 million, be approximately 35,000. So your net is 16,025,000. So that total would be the 59 million, almost $60 million project. You'd be receiving 41, almost 42 million in reimbursement, about an $18 million net to the city of Holyoke. And that represents around, I think you're going to get between around 70%, but it'll be a little under that, probably 68 or 69%. So that's the delta that people talk about. It's unfortunate, but that's how they fund it. It's still a good amount of money, but and I think 70% is higher than you see on most projects that are out there. So this is could actually be pretty good for the city. So that would conclude our presentation. We're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks. Can you take down the presentation so we can see your faces better? Great. Thank you. All right. I see lots of hands. I'm going to say, let's do Dave, because I know Dave has to leave early, then Aaron, then Mark. So Mr. Yost, you have the floor.
Yeah, so what is the actual square footage? What would be the square footage of the building?
It's around 111,000.
111.
Yeah.
And my other question, do you have a preference as far as procurement method for this project, 149A versus 149? Do you think one would be better than the other on this project?
I would encourage 149 simply because there's real competition at all levels. And why I recommend the early site package is also saving money by not having a general contractor's markup of 15 or 20% on top of the site costs. So when we do that, we go to chapter 30, I think it is, and it's just directly for site contractors, bid it directly. And that's where a good savings comes in at that. That's why we recommend that early site package. So that when the contractor gets on the site, he just starts building. He starts digging foundations, and that's what a general contractor does. But we're open. We've done the CM at risk as well. It's just proven to be more expensive.
All right, thank you.
Yep, you bet.
So that's Dave. So Aaron, why don't you go next?
Hi, thank you guys again for coming back and detailing your excuse me, your numbers for us a little bit more. One question I have is based on your site. I noticed that you have a lot of parking on the side of the building that I would consider to be like the most challenging. So I just wonder why? Why would we want to deal with the steepest part of the slope by putting blacktop there? I obviously I don't do this for a living, so if you could just help me understand, almost every other design we've seen has left the side that basically faces Beach Street, the other side of the dingle, natural because of the topography and the way the land slopes. So to me, it just seems like, why would we want to we're going to have to bring in fill and, like you mentioned, retaining walls and stuff to have parking there, when it just seems like there's so much flat space where the parking is now. So I just was curious as to the thought behind that, and if you felt like, it was the most cost effective way to organize the parking.
Well,
Some-
I'll let Naomi answer that as the landscape architect, but actually getting you needed additional parking at the school, for staff and also for people using the school. And we just suggested that because there had been comments about having more parking. So that's what we do. We don't have to do both lots, but they're both, as Naomi will explain, are easily landscaped in as well. So, but that's really going to be a design choice. We're just showing most people ask for more parking. That's just about every school we work on. They want more parking. So we're saying this kind of maxes that out. If you want less and more field, that's fine. But I'll let Naomi explain the grading of that.
It's not where the field is that I'm questioning. It would be
right. It's the north
side of the building. Yeah,
no, I understand. What I'm saying is that most people, the schools that I go to, they're always looking for more parking for activities and so forth. So we just tried to show this is an option. It's not a design. It's a concept at this point. We haven't had the great opportunity to work with you, to discuss it, to find new ways to do it. But I can have Naomi explain the grading and how that was done so that it would be using cut and fill in an advantageous way.
Yeah, I think, Erin, I think that you make a really good point. We have a resource that we want, a natural resource that we want to protect. And that would be the other reason why we would sculpt the land in a way that is trying to even out cut and fill, as well as to do the bioswales and things to mitigate any adverse effects that construction would have on the natural resource. I will echo what Frank just said in that this plan shows kind of a max build out of parking, which we're showing over 100 parking spaces. We would want, one of the first things we would want to understand from the school and from the district would be what, the current parking situation is, really how often you were having crunches and exceeding the parking that you needed, and really doing that parking study. We do it all the time with schools. It's usually harder at a high school because there's the calculation of students who drive. At a middle school, it's a little less of a challenge, but there are always events and other things. So the design is really showing a max. Even if we were to say cut out 20, 40, 50 spaces, whatever it might become, I still think we would do we would probably do a lot that was staggered in a way. But again, it would be because of the way in which the topography in some ways like closes down in the back. And also staggering them gives you the opportunity to actually screen them more from view. And so they might get shorter, but there may still be two that we gang up on each other. But again, that would be part of our work that we would do and that we do all the time with schools and parks and other facilities that we work on, is to really understand the parking constraints and demands.
Yep.
And I'd also like to add that, and you brought up a really good point, Erin, pointing out that that portion of the site to the south is the flattest part, but it's really advantageous to use the flattest portion of the site to build the building, because the building is less expensive to build on the flat portion of the site. And the fact that it did have a 15-foot difference in the two really buildable areas, which is the floor-to-floor height of the model school, really seemed to speak to the accessibility to the play area as well. So.
Yeah, so again, the site plan really needs to be, we try to maximize the building plan, and the site, all of those things like parking are up for design discussion.
Oh, and what Dennis said makes sense too. Put the building where it's flatter and adjust the land for parking. I know it sounds so basic, but he's the first person to put it so simply. So that makes sense. It's a good reason. Thank you.
Dennis is a great designer. He doesn't often make sense, but this time it did work.
I know.
Dennis is my cousin. I can talk to him like that.
All right. Erin, are you all set? She's muted herself, so I'm guessing we're on to Mark Lubold.
This school's been built how many times as part of the model built?
Well, the original model was built in New Bedford. That was back in the mid 2000s. And then we did Athol with that plan. That was done about 6 years ago, and then Marlboro.
So this would be the first.
This would be the fourth. Yeah,
And
well, it would be the third after the original, which was in New Bedford.
right. Okay. And that estimate of just under the 60 million, that's all in. That's like furniture.
No.
Okay.
The questionnaire asked to talk about construction costs, so I focused on that.
This is just hard construction costs.
Okay.
Hard construction cost, yes. I think you'd probably be looking at another 2 to 3 million on the net end for your soft costs. So all in, I think it'd be around 21 million would be your kind of obligation based on that. But I think we could still look for further savings too.
Okay.
I mean, see, our job is going to be to keep that square foot cost down as much as possible. I think things are beginning to ease up a little bit, and I think we'll get some good interest, I hope, on the bids, and that's where you make the money.
Sure. And the contractors that you worked with, I think in the first presentation you said Fontaine Brothers did 2 of those.
Well, Fontaine actually did the model in there, and they did Athol too. That's correct. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So they're very familiar with it.
Okay.
I mean, we definitely want them to bid on this.
Oh, absolutely. I think they've done it before. They know they can sharpen that pencil,
And they certainly don't want people from other parts of the state coming in and taking something out here.
That's exactly.
I know Dave Fontaine, but he's a good guy.
Assuming they're not already overcommitted.
Well, there's okay. You're right.
Okay, so I see Jamie has a question.
Hi there, welcome back. I was just asking you to refresh our memory on what was the average classroom size in your design?
900 and what, Dennis?
About 925, I believe.
Yeah, 925, 930. Yeah, I thought it was around there.
Okay, great.
I mean, they vary a little bit, but not much. It's right in that area. They're very similar to the ones you saw in Marlboro.
And that's coming in at the 111,000 square feet. That's
Yes.
without any modifications. So
Yeah, I mean, we adapted it to your program, so we have, but that's our square footage. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks again for coming back.
Yeah.
I see Peter Tallman has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Margaret. Frank or Dennis, on the design on the building, is that actually 2 levels or is it 3 levels?
2. But what has happened is that the upper stories, it technically you have 3 levels of the building, but there's nobody in the upper story of the gym and cafeteria. So those are 2-story spaces. You see? So
yeah.
Okay.
So in other words, there's no occupancy above the second floor. It's clear
Tall
storage
space.
above because you have a 2-story gym and a 2-story cafeteria.
Okay, because somebody mentioned they had the 6th grade, and then above them the 7th, and then above them the 8th.
No.
6th and 7th together?
6th on the first floor and 7th and 8th on the second floor.
No. Can I answer this, please? 6th and 7th are on the first floor.
First floor, yeah.
Okay.
The 8th grade is right above the 7th grade, and the Innovation Hub, as well as the science for the 6th grade, are right above the 6th grade.
Okay, so the 6th and 7th share the same floor?
Yes, they do.
Are they on different sides of the building, or?
Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to get that clear.
Yes, and then above the 7th grade is the 8th grade. So
and on the gym, you got the gym on the upper part of the cafeteria. That'll go out to the field?
Directly. You will have to go up a ramp or stairs because the field will be about 5 feet above where you exit the gym.
Mm-hmm.
So then
and you'll be able to go, one of those accessible paths that Naomi showed us. So it won't be like a ramp that you'll need rails or anything, but it'll be a nice accessible path or a set of stairs if you want a quicker way up.
Okay, yeah, I did notice the paths, and I saw there was a lot of them to go up to the back, and there's a lot of them around the school.
Yeah.
Is that something that's normal with these schools, the pathways? Because I noticed somebody on a skateboard, so I'm just a little concerned about kids
I'll
using them.
answer that.
Yeah, okay.
As far as whether it's typical for the school, that changes from town to town and site to site. If you've got a site that's completely flat, you're not going to have any of that. But on a site like this, where there's a significant grade change, you put a building of this size on it, and you're going to have to come up with some creative ways to connect the different spaces for the other programs, which are athletics, parking, connection to other resources. So, and again, we don't have, landscape architects don't have a model anything. Like we don't have, well, except maybe we might have a model ball field or a model, basketball court. Everything we do is site specific. So we'll have to roll up our sleeves and really figure out how, and this is a first pass at it, these drawings we've done for the interviews, is to figure out how that site gets knitted together, because you are stepping up and down from different levels and out to the existing landscape.
Okay. Thank you, Naomi.
So I see Jessica has a hand up. Jessica, you're still muted.
I think it's my headphones. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I apologize for that. So just in what was being spoken, in trying to maintain like efficiency, is there a way that you can modify the gym to be level with the playing field, to utilize, to use it while still being cost efficient? Or can you shorten the height of the gym and use extra space for storage or whatnot? Are those things that we could modify and still be cost effective?
Well, we would have to have a discussion about it. You can't modify the height of the gym. There's a minimum height, and it's pretty much at the minimum, which is 24 feet clear underneath the structure. Otherwise, you can't have really an effective basketball court or anything like that. So you have to have that. We just carry that same, for efficiency and cost purposes, we carry the same height all the way through. So the structure is similar, and you get a very nice cafetorium, and you can do all kinds of performances there. Those that came to the building saw how we have a music room right directly in back of the stage, and you can really utilize it as a theater for the kids and also for the community. So yeah, those things are difficult. It would be difficult to bring the level of the gym, the floor level, all the way up to the field. So you'll be about just under 4.5 feet, I think it is. So there would be a small, area of going up, a few steps, or a ramp going up. It's not really a ramp, it's a path.
I'll just add that, Jessica, part of the challenge with if you were to raise the gym up, the problem would then be getting down and around to the other parts of the school. Yeah. You then have these really steep driveways in order to get around. And so again, we'll look at where exactly this building sits on the site, but we're trying to find a good middle ground so that we don't have, say, a really steep driveway that comes up into the site to get to the level of the school that would be, say, too hard to plow or anything like that. So right now where it sits, it's kind of this middle ground. It's not all the way up at the field height, and it's not all the way down at where the access road comes in. We've got to kind of meet it in the middle. If that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. So my mindset was just, if you try to use the gymnasium for after hour activities, you would want to consider accessibility, ease of accessibility for all purposes, So I just wasn't sure if there was a way around that.
Well, we're accessible. There's parking right outside of the gym. So they would be able to access it from there. I mean, this is all obviously going to be a school department decision when they want the public access to the gym. So we have parking there. We have parking in the back that's shown. So there's many ways to access that for the community use. The entire back wing has always been designed as a community center, because you can lock off the academic part of the school so that people coming, they just get that back one corridor and both access to the gym and cafetorium. And that's the public space, usually on off hours and weekends. provided the school is, obviously supervising or in charge of it.
And it's fully accessible to all members of the community. And that's
Yeah.
why we've made it the way we did, making it very comfortably accessible by, instead of using lots of ramps, but by making comfortable paths and making sure that, people that are handicapped have full access to all parts of the building, and there's parking at all levels.
Right.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I see that Erin Linville has her hand up.
Deborah's had her hand up longer, so I want to go to her first.
Oh, I apologize. I don't actually have everybody on the screen. Deborah, I apologize.
No worries, thanks. Thank you for your presentation. My question has to do with the main entrance and security. So I noticed that in your design, there are lots of entrances around the perimeter of the building that are at a level grade. But I missed where the main entrance is and it's where it's placed with the administration. So what's the main in and out and how is that secure?
The main entry is immediately adjacent to the administration, and the way it's designed is to make it possible for anybody in the administration to see who's approaching the building. And when they do get up to the building's exterior, they are then buzzed in. So in other words, they have to ring a bell. Somebody in the administration will then buzz them into the vestibule. Once they're into the vestibule, they can't get any further. There will be like a bank window with a bank drawer and so forth, bulletproof glass and a microphone system, which will ask the person why they're there and what they. Oh, this is great. Thank you very much.
You're gonna go down to the
Let's go downstairs. Downstairs. Go downstairs. This is the second floor. Please go down to the first floor.
Let me see if I can do that. I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah. If you can go down to the first floor. Will, do you have that?
Yeah, it was right. You showed the second floor. You want to just show?
Yeah,
the
if I could share my screen, I could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Sure. Can you see the screen?
Not yet.
Should be sharing. Oh, 1 second here.
There you go.
There's something. There you go.
Now here's our first floor. So, and thank you for your patience. So now I know what I'm looking at. This is good. So this pink that you see here is the administrative areas, and right above it is the main entry. Can I use my cursor, Will?
No.
No. Oh, okay.
Will can.
Will can point to it.
Will can.
Point to the front.
So there's the main entry. So a person coming in will, on the outside of the building, will press a bell and they'll be let into the vestibule. Once they're in the vestibule, a person in the administrative area down here in the pink will be able to see into the vestibule and ascertain what that person needs. If they're just delivering something, they can put it through the bank drawer and then they can leave. If they're coming to visit somebody, they can be buzzed in and then into the administrative area for their visit. So there'd be a pulse screening that goes on. We will also spend time with your administration as well as your first responders and safety departments, police and fire, in determining all the real details of how this works. Some communities actually like a door within the vestibule. We'll work all of those details out, but it is a multi-check sort of entry. Every other door is only a way out. Once the once school starts. The only door that would be open at the beginning of school is down at the bottom of the plan, also adjacent to the pink. You'll see a set of doors with the vestibule. That is where the student drop-off is, and generally that is where there's an administrator or a faculty member and receiving the kids and bringing them into the building. That will automatically lock at the prescribed time. So you can get out of all the doors, but you cannot get into them after they lock down.
Thank you so much
So
for the clarification. That's much better. I can get it. I get it.
Okay, I'm glad. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Now, Erin Linville.
Hi.
Hi.
I work for the district, but I'm not a voting member of the SBC. On this schedule, the other designer we looked at had this 3-month period for move-in. And I'm wondering how you think about a move-in period. So like in your most aggressive timeline, you said it'll be done July or August. We could move in September.
Yes.
Like, what does that mean for does that mean kids will be attending school? Like school starts August 25th, say.
Yeah.
Are students attending school August 25th in the building, or no?
We would work with the contractor to get the occupancy permit a little bit before that. I show that end of construction duration as the final completion, but we can have what we call substantial completion, which allows occupancy while there are still a few minor things maybe still going on. And so that's what I say. We always integrate the moving into the school with the very end parts of construction where there might be field work or outdoor paving and things of that nature. So I don't do them sequentially. I don't like to, let's get 100% done. I mean, if we can't, we have the time and the luxury of time. Sometimes it falls that way. Otherwise, we would just integrate that move-in period where furniture is being delivered. It's usually kept in the gym or cafeteria, and then distributed throughout the school and things like that. So it's integrated with the end of construction.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Frank, I have one small question. Seamus's letter talks about bidding early next year. So I'm assuming, does he mean early 2023? Or
yes. No, 24. Because we if you look at our schedule, we are awarding contract.
Yeah, you're talking about it being getting it like
and occupancy in September of 25. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So I see Jamie's got her hand up again, and we're close. No, Jamie does not have her hand up again.
No, I do. I just had one quick question about the demolition cost, and was that wrapped in the timelines you gave? That was with the demolition wrapped into the whole process, correct? The cost breakdown.
It's really that 4.5 month period would be for a demolition abatement and site preparation. Okay, so the general site would be, would be graded and not finished grading, but it would be allowed all the planes that we need, and the general roads would be, sort of carved in, and that we would like to get done, prior to our actually going out to bid for the main building. So we found it's a great savings on 2 fronts, because you're getting just site, what we call horizontal contractors, which do demolition, abatement, and site work without contractor markup on it. So you get a pretty good competitive price there. And then contractors that are come to the site, everything is ready, and they can start excavating the next day. There's no waiting for grading, because what happens when you bid it all together, you can't start construction until all the site work is done. So that means you're carrying all of those subcontractors and subcontractors, the electrical, mechanical, everybody's on board once you've got a hard bid in, and they have to wait. See, so they have to escalate their prices, and that's why it's cheaper to just bid the building they start building the building. You bid the site and the demo, and they start doing it. So we found that the savings in that simple, recalculation of how you approach the construction process.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
6:54. So we're pretty much right on time. Does anyone have a last question? Let me just make sure I'm seeing everybody. Before we turn it back to these folks to close their presentation. I don't see any hands. So Mount Vernon Group, back at you. Thank you. Oh, Peter, you had a question?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. I was just wondering either Frank or Dennis about the HVAC stuff. We didn't see too much about that on this time around. Do you have somebody in charge of that?
We had them at our last meeting.
Okay.
We just thought that there are options to go. It looks like he wanted to go all electric, and I think he went over the air source. So I think we looked at water sourced heat pumps as well. But we can go all electric on it, and there would be quite a bit of we like displacement type systems that are quiet, and there's less duct work, and so there's a lot of other reasons for that too. But the thing I like most about it is very little noise, but also you have complete air changes. There's no recirculated air, and those two things are very important for sustainability. And especially after COVID, nobody wants to recycle air and then kind of put it back in the classroom. So now we're basically bringing in all fresh air and exhausting everything that's used, and it's always fresh air coming in. But we save the energy through a heat exchange so that the outgoing conditioned air goes through a heat exchanger, and so you don't lose that energy. You just you lose the air, the used air. So this is in a simple way. But I thought Marty did make a presentation the last time, and the questions seem to be more focused on the things that we covered tonight. And certainly Marty will be available in his firm for any further questions at the later date if possible.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, back to you, Mount Vernon.
Oh, back to us. Okay. Well, I want to thank you again for having us. It was great having you out at the school in Marlborough, nice town, and it worked out well. And we very much appreciate this opportunity. We'd love to work with you. We'll do everything we can to make sure that every dollar that Holyoke needs to spend on this is spent wisely and efficiently, and give you a great school. But that would be our hope. And thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, team. So we're going to everybody gets a 5-minute break, and then we're going to come back together. And so come back by just a couple minutes after 7, and we will have a discussion.
Margaret.
May
I ask, did it seem like the grading to seem much more complicated this time with Mount Vernon and the back and the ramps, the grading, and I don't remember that being so complicated last time.
I would say that it was just as complicated, but they didn't talk about it.
Which is what mainly we asked them to come back and talk about was site.
Yeah.
Because they kind of breezed through that. They took a very flat building, and it doesn't seem like they're really adjusting the building for our site. They're trying to put the building on the flattest part.
Yeah. But then the Flansburgh didn't sound the same way with Flansburgh. Flansburgh, did it?
They're both putting it on the flattest part.
Yeah, they're both putting on the flattest part.
We're going to be in the exact same spot. The gym's going to be in the same exact spot on that raised area where it is now. They're both the same.
But Flansburgh sounded like they were raising it enough to be even with the field. And then it seemed like Mount Vernon was putting a bunch of ramps. Was that correct the way I'm understanding it, or not really?
Well, it's interesting. In some ways, the schemes are very similar in the sense that they're courtyard schemes with the public zone kind of on one end. And in general, the public zone is on the end closest to the fields. It's a little bit of difference between the two. They're both doing the same thing where once you get in the building, you're entering the gym and the public spaces on the second level. And that's because the site is going this way. But there's so much grade change, as you know, between where the entry to Peck is and where the field is. Neither of them, to Jessica's question, are able to go the whole distance without, really significantly filling the site.
One other point that was kind of unique with Mount Vernon's group school that we toured, it was built on a slope. Not as sloped as ours, but like about a 30-35% slope. So that model school was built with some of the same issues. Not as bad, but similar. It was interesting that when we drove around the school, we were like, oh, there's the slope like ours. So it was neat to see both of them.
And I think both groups really took the slope out of the equation by flattening and using just that area, So they didn't make that an issue. They didn't have to slope floors to, get up to grade all along the way. And they kind of just, with the early site package and leveling it, they kind of took that out of the equation. Both groups.
Yeah, and they both more or less did the same thing in terms of site cost, which I think was fair. Was the buildings are relatively similar in footprint, so to get at the site costs, they took the value from the Jones-Whitsitt estimate. Now I think there's more site work in both of them than there's in the Jones-Whitsitt design. But I think in terms of comparing the two, they are correct that they're kind of the same, right? It's not that's not where I think you would see the difference in cost. Ksenia, are you on? Not sure. Ksenia was kind enough to screenshot. Did you screenshot the building plans for Flansburgh?
I screenshotted everything. Just a second.
I want to look at the floor plans. Actually, this is probably okay. I am going to pull up a couple things side by side for people's benefit, and I'm greatly benefiting from having Ksenia here because she screenshot everything.
I did. I'm a hoarder. What do you want me to present? Flansburgh floor plans?
No, I think I've got it. Well, did they present a floor plan for 1 and 2? I know they presented the site diagram. If you can send me 1 and 2, and then I'll pull up a couple things kind of side by side, and then we should get talking. So, so I think what I'm going to do here. That's okay.
Yeah, Margaret, I'm getting kind of down to the wire where I have to leave. Are most of the people back yet?
I think we should get launched. So Dave has another commitment that he has to go to, which he let me know earlier today. So Dave, I think what I'd like to do is to let you sort of comment, and then also if you have a ranking for the two, why don't you send it to me? And after we've had the discussion, you can just text it to me. After we've had the discussion, when we go around and do the ranking, I will have your ranking, okay? In case you're not able to stick around and hear the whole discussion. So, Dave, why don't you go ahead if you want to comment about the two so that you can. And
Yes,
also,
very-
thank you for staying for both interviews, because I think that's really important in terms of voting.
Yeah, so very briefly, I'd just say, both designs are good. I think both firms are good to work with. I'd give the edge in my ranking to Mount Vernon because looking at what they present on the hard costs, there's a several $1 million edge there. I think it had a lot to do with the timing of the bidding or having the strategy of having the two, the demolition and construction or bidding going at the same time. So I'd give the edge to Mount Vernon for that reason.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
I think that's pretty much it. I mean, either one I think would be good to work with. But I think as far as strategically being able to be most cost effective, I think I'd give the edge to Mount Vernon. Or I do give the edge to Mount Vernon.
Okay. So if we're going to go around, if anybody's got questions as we go, again, Ksenia's taken all these snapshots I can pull up, but I would like to go around, and I'm going to call on people in order. Mayor Garcia, you're next in my lineup, but last time you had opted to go last. Do you want to speak now or wait till later?
Yeah, I think because I don't want to influence the group with what my thoughts are. I really want this to be a community effort here. So I defer to allow the other folks to just go first and weigh in and put in their votes.
Okay. So then, Whitney, I'm going to ask you to speak next if you can.
To me?
Mr. Collmore would like to make a couple comments, Margaret, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Margaret, cafeteria and gymnasium are going to be close by or central to the back of the building so that we can use it properly for community use, not just for the whole school system. It's got to be community use, cafeteria and gymnasium. Is it going to be blocked off from the school itself?
So both buildings are set up in the existing versions we saw, as well as in what they're proposing, where that whole end of the building has its own entrance and can be locked off, separated from the whole academic wing.
Parking again. I see where the parking would be mostly at the rear of the school building or toward the Dingle area. Is there any provision to park cars along where the gymnasium area is so that the public there is going to be able to exit the gymnasium or the cafeteria without any problems?
They had slightly different approaches to that, but I also think that if that was something that the community wanted, either site plan could be made to provide parking immediately adjacent to the gym. The Mount Vernon design has a road that wraps by there and then has to sort of dive down into the dell that has parking basically right next to where the separate gym entrance would be.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate both designs and both designers. I think either building would be nice. In regards to the specifics, and we could work them out uniquely to Holyoke's situation. I think the sharpness and the keenness that Mount Vernon Group brings to the financial analysis sets them apart in regards to their current assessment of the demolition costs and Hoyok's percentage, the abatement costs and Hoyok's percentage, the escalated cost of $399 per square foot in relationship to the current 366 or whatever it is. That, you know, it just shows a current awareness and fiduciary responsibility of what burden the community would need to bear in relationship to this effort. You can't get enough information in that regard, because the mayor still needs to bring forward an opportunity for the community through the council to get behind this effort. And if, you know, they're talking about 18 to 21, and then you add in furniture and furnishings for another 2 or 3, and then you got soft costs on top of that, you're still looking at $30 million. So either the mayor can support that or he can't. And if he can't, then the project's dead in the water. If he can, then I'm very excited to get behind Mount Vernon Group, and they would be my first choice.
Okay, Mark Lubold.
Yeah, as I stated at our last meeting, you know, I think either designer is certainly capable and competent. When this whole thing started, I was dead set against the model schools. How could they make it work? There's no way. And lo and behold, they certainly did, both of them. I'm very impressed with both.
Yeah.
Both buildings are places of learning. I just felt that when you walked in the door. So either design, I think, would work for us. You know, but I'm leaning more towards the Mount Vernon Group based on some of the things that Whitney had said, and certainly with you know, the costs being substantially less as far as I'm concerned from the other group. You know, the Flansburgh, they showed a chart of costs where they were at average. Well, if you noticed who was below them on almost every time was the Mount Vernon Group, which I couldn't understand why they even showed that slide. I was like rubbing my eyes here. Are they really showing this slide? I couldn't understand what that was all about. But one of the big things I did like is that innovation hub that the Mount Vernon Group is calling, right next to the gym and the cafetorium, is all in the same area that can be locked down from all the rest of the school. So there could certainly be some pretty interesting and neat, you know, summer programming or at night, and be able to use a lot of the school, where, you know, the Flansburgh gym was kind of on the second floor, the cafetorium and other things were on the first floor. So there might not be that opportunity in an efficient way. So I feel, you know, my number one would certainly be towards the Mount Vernon Group.
Super. Jamie.
First, I just want to say I was impressed with Flansburgh tonight, because originally their first proposal to us, I felt they dropped the ball, and they did come back strong, and they were a real contender tonight. They kind of buttoned up a lot of their things, and touring their school, it was beautiful as well too. They were both beautiful. Both schools would be a great asset to Holyoke, but I am leaning towards Mount Vernon Group as well, just because they built this school not once, whereas, you know, Flansburgh, this would be their second time building this school. For Mount Vernon Group, this would be their 5th time building this school. So just the experience there. I too, Mark, saw that chart, and I thought it was interesting that they used it in their presentation, because they did show themselves another designer, and then Mount Vernon Group, their you know, direct competition, and their chart showed that Mount Vernon Group, you know, surpassed everybody when it came to cost savings. So I would be happy with either designer, but if I had to rank, I would rank Mount Vernon Group and then Flansburgh.
Well, fortunately, you are going to have to rank. So thank you, Jamie. Jessica, please.
Hello. So I'm kind of on the same page with everybody. I think both groups are good at what they do. You know, they both had an opportunity for different scenarios, and they met those scenarios well. I I'm looking at the designs and I like both of them. I like how Flansburgh was able to keep the gymnasium level with the field, but I like the use of the rainwater and management also in the topography being sloped and unelevated. So what caught me is this, and please share thoughts in return if anything strikes you. So we're building middle school in Holyoke. We're not so advanced because we haven't had new schools in a long time. Flansburgh has a beautiful middle high school, but it has a college-y feel to it. So if you place middle school kids in such an extravagant building, and then not to say it in this way, but like you downgrade them back to like Holyoke High or Dean Tech, it's kind of like we're outdoing ourselves in the middle school level, advancing children, and then giving them like a back to basics in the high school realm right now, just right now. So Flansburgh, I mean, Mount Vernon, I feel it fits us right now. It suits our needs. The classrooms are spacious enough. We can, use them for different scenarios, different outbreaks, different nooks. And I like Mount Vernon in the beginning. I liked Flansburgh. I did feel they stepped up their presentation and what it is, but adaptable for Holyoke and what we need today, I would have to say Mount Vernon.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Raina.
So I'm with everyone. I did like both schools offer what we great learning spaces for Holyoke. I do agree with Jessica that Flansburgh does seem more collegey, but again, that was a middle high school model school, as opposed to Mount Vernon is an elementary school model school that we are making into a middle school. I did like Mount Vernon. I do like that hub. I like the gym, cafeteria, and staging together. And because we saw it, there's doors, accordion doors that you can marry the cafeteria and the gym for extra seating when there's a big event towards the stage. So I do like that. And I like it that it's on its own in one floor as opposed to two floors. And it has its own entry and exit in that sense. They both did well. They both offer things, but and the bottom line is, the last time this failed was because of cost. So we have to, we just have to be cost effective in this. And again, this is Mount Vernon is for me because it's the fourth time they will be building this. They're efficient. They know the materials. They want to save us money and they understand that portion. And again, they have the data to back it up that they do come at a lower cost and still build a nice school. It meets the Holyoke needs, what we need right now. So that will be my vote. Thank you.
Terrific. Peter Tallman.
Thank you, Margaret. Great presentation, and thanks for all my colleagues on this committee that went down to the schools to look at them, and thanks for your updates on the differences that they're both had and the importance of them. And I think both groups did a great job. I wasn't expecting Flansburgh to do that well, but they really surprised me with their presentation. I thought it was very informative. The cost, I know they broke down the cost a little bit. I think Mount Vernon's costs were more, detailed, as far as demolition and everything. I know I said at a meeting a couple months ago that, I want the best building, and if it costs a little bit more, well, I want to make sure that we get this building. But I think Mount Vernon does have a good handle on everything. They broke everything down pretty good. The only question I had, Margaret, and I know he did say something about the extra with the furniture and stuff, whatever, a couple million, but they didn't really bring out the cost, the soft cost, like you stated, the 20%.
Well, because that's on me.
Yeah, and I know Whitney brought, yeah.
I am responsible for presenting those and developing those. So that's why they were only asked to speak to the construction.
Okay. And are those, I mean, you've been doing this for a while, are those costs that they said reimbursed for the demolition and the abatement and the site and all that. Are those pretty right on with the MSBA,
Yeah, I mean,
reimbursement?
they used slightly different numbers for demolition and abatement, but they were close. They used the same approach to the site costs. And yes, what Frank said about the way the MSBA just changed at the end of December, the way they're reimbursing, and what he said is correct. I think the way to think about it is, I think the site cost for both of these projects would be relatively similar. It's not a big differentiator. They're both buildings with, they're 2-story buildings of approximately the same square footage, and everything that's outside of them has to manage the site slope. And they will work, the design team will work hard, to minimize those costs. So I think you could consider that not a differentiator, those costs. I think the real differentiator is what is being said about the building cost. And Mount Vernon Group is making, I would say, an argument for a lower building cost, but they didn't have the estimator present to talk about it. So.
Right. And the other one did have the estimator, but when he pushed out the cost, it looked like it was, 15% for 2026?
Well, so traditionally what you do is, if it had been me, I wouldn't have done exactly what either of them did. I mean, typically what you do is you take your best guess at what a given building would build on a given day, and you escalate to the midpoint of construction. So that midpoint of construction is, the reason you do that is that's typically the time by which pretty much everything's been bought. Not the building isn't built. So the Mount Vernon estimator used a lower escalation number, considerably lower, and the Flansburgh estimator used a higher escalation number. So that, again, even though we tried, we're really still, I feel like I should just said, just use the same number, but they didn't.
Right.
I think
that could be confusing.
Yeah, it circles back to the point I think that's been made. I think Mark and Jamie both made that Mount Vernon Group has built this building several times, and they have the best record of cost performance in the portfolio of architects that we're looking at. I think that's a really important point. I don't think anyone should take the numbers that got presented tonight as gospel.
No.
They're kind of more explaining how people think about things. I see Erin Linville has her hand up.
That's what I wanted to comment on. I feel that with Margaret saying, like, I agree with Margaret's last statement, like they have the best history of cost performance, and there was something else there, Margaret, that you said we could hang our hat on.
Well, I think that the size of the building is the same.
So it's actually 5,000. It's 6,000 square feet difference. So I just felt like maybe people. I took pictures of the financial estimates, and I want to say, from my perspective, the financial estimates that Flansburgh gave are actually more detailed and laid out. They didn't do like this is your reimbursement thing, but they laid it out they did have the demolition, the hazardous material, the site costs. They were really clear about the contingency design and the escalation, and then the general conditions. So I think that they actually laid it out more clearly. I think their bottom line, I want to check my understanding of this, like their cost of trade work was 53.4 million, whereas I think Mount Vernon Group was saying theirs would be at about 51 million.
Yeah.
So that's the numbers I think we should be comparing. However, what I'm confused about is, and maybe I misheard it, I thought I heard Flansburgh say 400 like I had written down like 415 or 414 per square foot. I had 415 per square foot is what I typed, but then Mount Vernon Group said 460 to 470. Did I mishear that 415?
Yeah, let me.
Was it 450 or something? Did I like?
Here, again, thanks to.
Flansburgh
Tanya.
did say 683 a square foot with demolition. I wrote that number down. So
Yeah.
with the demolition, I had the number down as 683 a square foot. That was including demo.
Yeah.
If that helps anything.
I mean, you know, if can everybody see this chart?
Yeah.
So, you know, I will say that I think it was great that Frank did this, but that's not a differentiator here, right? The way that math works is the same for anything. So, as I said, you know, the site number that they use, the 5,800 they rounded, Mount Vernon rounded down. Peter Bradley used his real number. And then they used 5% escalation. Well, Peter Bradley used 14%.
14%. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then this is the question about what the construction cost per square foot is. They have a letter from the estimator saying, if you take that building and you build it on a similar site, I think it will be $460 a square foot. But he only escalated to the bid period. He didn't escalate to the midpoint of construction. So it's closer to apples and apples. I think it starts to tell you they're relatively similar. But the points that have been made about experience with building this and overall cost performance are also important to keep in the mix.
Yeah, I guess that's what I wanted to say is I don't feel like Flansburgh presented something that was more costly actually. Given the amount of rounding and estimating and assumptions are going into this, it's like a wash. I just wanted to make that point because I just felt like I didn't exactly feel like that point was made. I think that the historic low cost performance and having built this building are advantages in this way, but I don't think it's obvious that what they presented is much less expensive than what Flansburgh did.
And wasn't there another slide, to your point, Aaron, that showed like what it was per square foot then, what it would be, and then kind of like what it should be? Like there was some slide where he talked about like 3 different dollars per square foot. I don't know if you have that slide, Margaret, but I think that's what, this one.
Right.
This is very confusing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this was a little problematic, but I mean, basically the building we went to see when it was bid was $333 a square foot. And he's saying the escalation between then and today is, if you built it today, if you bid it today, it would be $444. And then he's saying if you bid it early next year, which is when Mount Vernon Group is showing the bidding, it would be in the order. He doesn't say what his assumption about escalation is. And again, Peter Bradley, the other estimator, made a very conservative assumption.
I think the point of concern with this slide is that he says the ones they have that are about to go to bid, many are over 500.
Yeah.
So I know it's not my turn to go yet. I know you didn't call on me, but like based on I just fear that the numbers we're getting from Mount Vernon aren't true numbers yet. And I fear that when we go to negotiating, the numbers are going to be significantly more. Let's just focus, if we could, on 1 second on my question about the site. And when I asked them why they would put parking on the backside where they need to fill in more land, they breezed back the fact that they didn't actually quote numbers on that yet. And the main thing we wanted them to go over tonight, one of them was site costs, because we only get reimbursed for such a percentage of site costs. So to brush off my question, also, I don't like that the one gentleman kept cutting off other people and speaking over people. That rubs me the wrong way. I felt like he didn't want other people to finish their thought so that he could interject to gloss it over. So something about, I don't know what it is, you guys, but something about Mount Vernon, it's like, I just don't feel like their numbers are true to us. I want to go with the school that best fits Holyoke. And I agree with most of you that either building at the end of the day will be wonderful for our city, will make it work, the programming will work great. I'm nervous, very nervous, that number per square footage is not even close to what they're going to come in at. Right there in that slide, he tells us that the average right now, even for their firm, that's what it says, is over 500 a square foot. So unless they have some stockpile from 2019 with a warehouse full of supplies that isn't at the same escalation that it should be, then I just don't understand how they're getting to their number. So for me, I was very impressed by Flansburgh tonight. I love the look of their building. To Aaron's point, it is bigger, so it is going to be a little bit more expensive to. Oh, is it the other way around?
Other way around.
Yes.
Other way around.
Yes.
Sorry, but I know the cost per square footage was slightly different, and obviously we need to present like an affordable package to the city of Holyoke, but we're not going to just pick the low-lying grape because it's more affordable. I'm just nervous. I'm just nervous that those numbers are not accurate. I just, something about them. I don't know how to best to explain it. It was mainly my question about that parking. That's a lot of fill and level to make parking spots on the steepest slope of the building. So I understand in theory why they would put parking there, but I just don't think that they incorporated all of the costs. I don't feel like they're bringing us a full, true, good faith estimate. So I would just be leery that their cost per square foot is going to be what they said it would be if they bid next spring, which is that $465. It's still less than Flansburgh, but I just don't think it's going to be as low. So if I had to choose right now, firms, I would go with Flansburgh. Design, I would go with Flansburgh. Cost-wise would be the only reason I would choose Mount Vernon. Something about it just doesn't sit well with me. So I'll be quiet now.
Well, all good points. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up. I've recorded your comments here, and I'm sure many of which I agree with and are on point. Deborah Vega, though, I want to go to next.
Ooh, this is a good spot to go.
It is.
Getting good. So I feel like in a lot of ways we're splitting hairs with the buildings. I think they will both be great. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I was so impressed by Flansburgh because they were my third choice last time. And I thought they were kind of a hot mess last time. But this time they were very, I thought they were very focused and did a lovely presentation. And I love those red stairs. I love the entrance and the grandness of all the beautiful windows, which I understand aren't that cost effective for heating and cooling. But I do love the natural light and the grand entrance. But then as we started talking about costs, I was leaning back toward Mount Vernon. I was very swayed by the costs. But are the numbers true? I don't know if the numbers are true. So now if I'm swayed back to design, I do like about Mount Vernon that they put the cafeteria and stage at the same level as the gym for extracurricular events. So that is very appealing to me. So it's very hard for me to do a vote. design, I think that the big red stairs and the big entrance is really, really cool. But costs probably will go back to Mount Vernon. And I do like that other design element that I mentioned with the cafeteria. So I guess in a teensy little way, Mount Vernon. Thank you.
So, Deborah, I just want to say there, as I said earlier, the diagrams, these plans are very similar, but there is one, really significant thing which you're hitting on here is, so in the Flansburgh design, you come in to that public wing and you come into the cafeteria space. In the Mount Vernon plan, and this use of it will be different than the way it's been used on the other sites. There's really two entrances. There's a minor, when you sort of drive up to what is now the Peck entrance, there is an entrance to get into the public wing. But the main entrance, you kind of drive around the side of the building and enter on the east side. It's not that one or the other is better. They're just different. And I also just want to respond to the square footage thing. The square footage thing is a really big deal in terms of cost. And I think in either case, we'll end up scaling these plans back to the program size that the MSBA has agreed on. So I think that the square footage size is not really so much a differentiator because they'll have to make adjustments. And the reason is when the MSBA does these program comparisons, anything that's over their standards, they just exclude. It's 100% on the community. So we will have to work with the designer to get the spaces aligned with the program summary. And that means the Mount Vernon building will shrink a little bit in square footage, I believe. That's my expectation. So, okay, Deborah, thank you. David spoke. Kathy Ortiz.
I think Mark has his hand raised. I don't know.
Sorry, Mark.
Oh, that's no worries, Margaret. I just wanted to kind of, just talk about some of the issues that Aaron had raised. We're in full control of what that site design is going to look like. That was, both of the site plans are just ideas that the architects put forward, right? I think Mount Vernon Group heard, I think Mr. Collymore would agree, parking. And I think they put it near the building where it kind of made sense, okay? But we're in control of that. And if we feel that that's going to be cost prohibitive, then we do something else, okay? And I think from that letter, what I took from the estimator was right now they're seeing over $500 per square foot.
Yeah.
That's not with this design. That's not with this model school design. These are designs that other architectural firms have put forward. Okay, it's really not comparable. And if you look at that chart, there are many percentage points below the average. That's what their history. And if you look at past performance, which to me is a big part of it, because they're all qualified, but their past performance to me screams they perform well, and they perform well under the average. So I just kind of wanted to point that out while we were fresh talking about it.
Okay. Where were we? Kathy, I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Thank you.
So about Flansburgh, I think I like the definitely the cyber cafe is a plus, just because give a sense of dominance to the older students, be there in the second floor using that space. And also they have a lot of space in the different around the school to do breakout rooms. So they provide a lot of extra space within the school to do extra activity with the students out of the classroom. So that's a really plus for me. Also the way that the school can go around, to circulate within the school, which is, I think that's pretty cool. one of the things that worried me about the design, he was talking about first is price, cost, and the second is like he was saying that the HVAC it's gonna change soon, so that is gonna add to the cost about construction. And the other side, Mount Vernon, I think I like three things. It worries me. Two things worry me, and I like three things. I like that they have like a balcony in the first floor where students can wait without getting like wet or to be. I think that's one of the things that I like the most, just because when middle schoolers usually wait outside and it's rainy or something, they can have like shelter. So I think that's one of the things that I like about that building. I also like the different access to the entrance for the teachers, like have like three different access. I think what worried me about the Mount Vernon is the delivery of the time. If you can find the slide that has like the three different times, one says like it's early, and then so I can like explain better.
Give me 1 minute.
Okay.
Ksenia, do you have your hand on that? This Mount Vernon, you were talking about Mount Vernon's schedule. Oh,
Yeah,
I got it.
they have like three different times.
I got it. Let me hold this.
So so it has like the three different times. And then the last one, it says like Mount Vernon Group Architects traditional schedule. Okay. So they're promising that it's gonna be early, but for reality, how it usually goes, as the slide shows, it's gonna be like further than the time that they said that it's gonna be like delivered, that we can go into the school. So and I think that can also affect like the costs, even though it was like a really good design. I like both, but I think that worries me is that and how is that's gonna affect like the cost construction side.
So let me just talk about this for a moment, because I think, whoops, not too far with this. So, the reason he presented the slide was he feels really strongly about doing this early package, right? This is separately bidding. Can everybody see this?
Mhm.
Big enough. There we go. That might be better. Frank feels really strongly about bidding the demolition and abatement early. And he makes some very good points about basically when you go to here to bid the big project, the building project, the site's clear, and the contractor the general contractor has no responsibility for that. He drew this against his will because I asked them to show a schedule where it all got bid together. And the reason is that it's important to understand that in order to do this version, the city has to authorize the building demolition before you have bid the rest of the project. That is a choice, right? He is making an argument for it because there are cost savings related to it, but there is risk associated with it. So Kathy, just to explain, like he does not want to do this. He's not going to recommend this. He's just doing it because for comparison's sake, I asked him to show both. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So I think I think that the thing that worries me about is like the pricey thing with Mount Vernon, also with Flansburgh as well. Just because a lot of glass, a lot of different things, even though I like that building better for that reason, but I like the other one just because it has everything at once, and then you can like leverage, like extracurricular activities, all that. But that we need to ask ourselves, like, we truly are going to use all that space, for future activities. So whatever it is, and how often we're going to use that for those activities. So if we had like a better clarity about the prices, talking about Mount Vernon group, I think we can make like a better decision. So far, I think I will go with the number one, Flansburgh. If they can, they say they can adapt and make the classroom bigger. So if they can do that and possibly like take out some glass and put brick, then I go with them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Jackie Glasheen.
I'm listening to everybody and I keep going back to the comment that I made in the first round, and I'm super nervous that the cost in the city council and ensuring the funding for this project. And I heard someone say, I don't want money like that just to go with the lowest hanging fruit because it's the lowest hanging fruit. I think both buildings are beautiful, and I think both bids are beautiful, and I think that either way we go, we're going to end up with a good school. But I would not want to be the one that would have to defend choosing the higher cost option that we were reviewing, because it would have to be a pretty good defense, and I don't know that I'm that good at it. So that's my current feeling.
Okay, so we are not going to make you go to city council and talk about this, promise.
But I'm going to be really
Oh,
honest,
yeah.
Margaret. I'm going to be in Stop and Shop and see all those people that are going to make me talk about it.
So wearing a mask and doesn't keep that from happening?
No.
Okay, I see Aaron's hand is up and I see Peter's hand is up. So
Peter should go first. His hand's been up longer.
okay.
I was gonna say ladies first, Aaron. You sure you don't want to go?
No.
Okay. No, I was speaking earlier and I never really got a chance to say who I favored, and I know a couple people, other people chimed in, and you know, I did say earlier you want the best fit. I think either school would be great, but after hearing a couple other comments tonight, I think Flansburgh was more upfront and honest about the future cost. I really felt good about that. I like Mount Vernon. I think I like their briefing and the cost. They broke it down, but when you only put 5% there, it sort of concerned me. And I know, Margaret, you said one gave 14, 15%, the other one gave a 5%. And I just feel right now, I mean, I feel comfortable with Flansburgh, and I know it's our design. I mean, I know these are schools that they built, and that's going to be adjusted to what we want. But I'm looking at my colleagues on the council, and I'm looking at these future votes. You know, I think you're going to need 9 votes for this project to go through, and I've already can think of a couple people that, you know, money is an issue. You know, and it's an issue for me too. But the future cost of this, can the city afford it? And as Whitney said, if we can't put this to a point where we're going to get the community on board, you know, it's not going to happen. And I want the school to happen. So I'm going to stick my neck out a little bit, and I'm going to go with Flansburgh, because I feel that they were more upfront with the cost. And I think that the point they talked about, that they could sometimes order some stuff down the road ahead of time, you know, some of the supplies, I think that made a difference in my thought. And the only other thing is, I don't know if they said they could connect the gym or whatever up towards the school. I know Mount Vernon did, but if somehow we could put it in there with Flansburgh to have a community area access, because, you know, if we give it where it's not just a school, it's a community school, and it's a community area that we can utilize. I think that is a key thing for myself and my colleagues on the council to try to push this along with the cost this is going to be. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, thank you. Anthony Soto.
Can I just ask my question on the schedule?
Oh, yeah,
Because
sorry,
I
Erin.
think we're basing in the past, we based a lot of Mount Vernon Group on being able to hit that August 2025. But like I asked them, a key difference in the schedules, one difference is Flansburgh was more conservative and gave like a 2 to 3 month move-in period. And Mount Vernon Group said, oh, we overlap it and you kind of move in as we finish. And I haven't done this before, so I don't know what's reasonable, but I wanted to get Margaret or Whitney's estimate on like, should there be a move-in period that's separate from the end of construction or not?
There will be a move-in period that will be separate from the end of construction unless you have a hard deadline. Because although you can do what Frank is describing, it's very messy to have everybody on top of each other, and there's a lot of finger pointing. So it's not, can you do it? Yes, you can do it. It's not ideal, and you'll never hear us recommending it.
Yeah, so I just want to say that my opinion on that schedule thing is that we're not actually going to get in by August 2025 with either group. I would still love to give my overall opinion after all voting members, but you should go to voting members first.
Wasn't our goal to be in for fall of 26?
It was our goal, yeah, for 2026.
Fall of 26, not 25, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
and both accomplished that. One of the pitches, the compelling pitches of Mount Vernon Group in the first round was they're like, hey, we can get you in by 2025, which is, I mean, that's in 2.5 years, folks. That's pretty incredible. If, you know, and not maybe possible.
All right, Jamie, can I come back to you just because I want to try to
It's just one quick clarification from you, Margaret, and I think it will kind of clear things up. You just recently said that pricing was apples to apples. So is that still true? You just said this one said that, this one said that. You just made the comment that when it comes down to pricing, it's really apples to apples. They're both kind of very similar. No? Okay.
No. What I said was you could consider the abatement, the hazardous abatement, the demolition and site costs, I think, to be relatively similar. The differences in the building and in the building costs, the difference is partly the base number you're starting from and partly the escalation. And I don't think we have a really apples to apples because we have two different opinions, and one of them is very optimistic and one of them is very conservative.
All right.
With that, Mr. Soto.
Yeah, I just want to be crystal clear because even after all the questions around finance, it's still unclear to me. I saw two total numbers. One of them was about 59 million and one of them was about 72 million. Is there anything missing from one of those numbers that is misleading, or are those both the total numbers that we should be comparing? 72 million versus 59 million. Because my vote depends on that number. Like,
I just sent everybody the two different charts. If folks want to take a second in their to look at those two different cost charts, let me know if you didn't get it.
I'm gonna.
So I heard a lot of discussion around the site work having, you know, a 5% escalation versus a 14% escalation, but that, you know, that doesn't, that's of a smaller number in the grand scheme of things of 5.8 million. So we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, not the difference of $11 million. So that's why, like, go ahead, Aaron.
So from what I can tell, what I do not see in the Mount Vernon groups that I do see in the Flansburgh has this 10.6 million general conditions for insurance, overhead, and profit. And that's
that's my question is
that's
like,
nowhere in the MVGs. If you otherwise we're comparing 59 million to 61 million with different escalation costs.
If it's 59 to 61, that changes everything for me.
I know.
Okay.
And I want to make sure everybody is aware of that, right? Like the number 72 million compared to 59 million is a huge difference. We're talking like some very significant savings.
Did people get my email or not? And I'm happy to go on screen here.
In a minute, I'm gonna pull them up side by side on the screen and we'll walk through this.
So with that
Give
said,
me a
like,
second.
if the difference is 72 million versus 59 million, then like I would totally say that Mount Vernon would be my top choice. But I did, Flansburgh brought their A game, and I was able to get a sense of what the school looks like inside. They had more pictures, they had videos. The school just looks like a better school. A school, Mark talks about a place of learning. Like, it was harder to see that in the Mount Vernon design because it was more like schematic and like it was harder to get a sense of what it looks like inside and get that vibe. But that I'm sure they can produce a similar presentation with pictures and videos. So it's hard. But if it's 72 million versus 59 million, that to me that sways me strongly to Mount Vernon being. But I don't want to make a decision like that if it's a difference between a couple million, because if that's the case, then like it really does change my answer.
Okay, I'm gonna pull up, and I just created a side by side of these two things. Okay, so and I'll talk you through them. And I apologize, it is super confusing. Can everybody see this? So these are the two slides that were shown. So this is Flansburgh and this is Mount Vernon. And so, again, I want you to not look at this MSP reimbursement piece because it works the same for either one. To get to the question, so the demolition number, they have 1.4. These guys have 1.3. The abatement here is lower. The abatement here is higher. The site work numbers are relatively similar. The difference is right here, the Mount Vernon group is saying that the building cost is $51 million.
Including escalation?
Including escalation. But they've made a lower escalation assumption than what Flansburgh has assumed. Here.
So then the escalation is included in the numbers.
So up here in Flansburgh's, they called it out. They said there's
61 versus 59. Okay.
Right. And the other thing that's confusing is that this, let's go back. So if you were to compare these two numbers, you want to take, and Ksenia, maybe you could do this for me. You would want to take this to compare Flansburgh's building costs to Mount Vernon's. You'd want to take this number, the 43,990 number, and you would want to add to it a portion of this design contingency. And Ksenia, let's just use 90%.
So I'll do that, Margaret, but I just did it a slightly different way. I looked at Mount Vernon. I took out 5%, and instead of having 5%, I added back 14% to sort of scale it up to a higher version of escalation, which are both assumptions on both ends. And then the Mount Vernon number went from 59.8 to 65.
So in that scenario, like based on what you just said, the Mount Vernon project would be more expensive. If all things equal, if they use the same contingency, then Mount Vernon's would be more expensive. But are the general conditions, insurance, overhead, and profit included in the Mount Vernon number? I don't feel like we asked them that directly, and I still don't feel like
No, they are.
Where?
They are included.
Where? In the 51?
In the 59.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
They are. And if I might just add, if you look in the Mount Vernon group, which is the lower comparison, and I appreciate you putting this up there, Margaret.
Yeah.
If you look at the $51,060,000 and then the square foot cost basis adjacent to that in the right-hand column.
Yeah.
you see that that building was originally built at $333 a square foot. So that number has been escalated from its first inception. So the $51 million that you see there is actually an escalated cost divided by the 111,000 square foot. So that general conditions that Aaron just spoke of and said, is that cost included? That's a cost of the building. That's incorporated into the builder's overhead profit, number. Traditionally cost. And that is reflected in that number. So the difference that Anthony has put his finger on is the important question. Is it the comparison between the $72 million and the 59, call it $60 million? And that is the crux of the issue here. So you can see that there already is escalation built into the Mount Vernon Group number, which does accommodate the increased cost of which their official estimator has said in his professional opinion in written form is going to come in at $460 to $470 when it's bid in the middle of next year. Escalation's already been included. That number, the comparison that you're looking at, $11 million, that's the bottom line.
Well, I don't know that to be true, Whitney, and I want to make sure everybody, like we nail this down. Is the 5% escalation that they're using just on the site cost, or is it on everything that we're looking at?
What you see there is just on the site cost, Anthony. But
Whitney, I'm asking. I want to ask Margaret this question, please.
Thank you.
So I only see a 5% escalation on the site cost. I don't see that in the building. And like when we're comparing 14% to 5%, is that the only place that they use different escalation, or is it on this entire analysis?
It doesn't say it specifically, but I am assuming that they have embedded a 5% escalation in all of these. The real question is whether 5% is the right escalation number. And
right.
I just have to say one other thing. I don't think at the end of the day, we don't know enough to be able to say one of these is going to be cheaper than the others. Really.
But we're basing our decisions to vote based on that. 72 million versus 59 million. I believe, and I don't want to speak for anybody else, but everybody that voted for Mount Vernon talked about cost. So like that means that everybody that voted for Mount Vernon, the argument about cost isn't even real.
Well,
if that's the case.
If we could have a discussion on this for a minute, that'd be great.
Well, I see a lot of different hands going up. So, Whitney, do you want to go first? Raina,
yeah,
Raina's got her.
Mount Vernon at the Marlboro site that we visited, and they built that for $333 per square foot in 2019. If you escalate it to today's cost, their estimator has suggested, in his professional opinion, and there are two people that do this in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and both of their names are Peter.
Well,
and so
actually,
there's a third. This particular Peter has suggested that if that building built for $333 in 2019 by Mount Vernon Group was built in the middle of next year, after all the dust settles and we go out to bid, it would come in at $460 to $470. That's the figure you see right there. Under building, $51,060,000 cost basis, it's already been escalated. That is the basis of my decision to go with Mount Vernon Group.
I see what you're saying now, Whitney. They are just not bringing attention to it, but it's already been factored in. And then they're saying there's potential additional escalation between now and when we actually go out.
And that exists with any opportunity that we have in the future.
Okay.
The escalation's already built in.
So can I, are we going to have more discussion on this, or can I just finish my vote?
Please. No, I'm all set.
Margaret?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Wait, Raina's hand is up, and if it's about finance, I think she should talk. She's a financial professional.
I can't see any, the screen is up, so I couldn't see Raina's hand up.
That's
sorry.
okay. I just wanted to point out though that you know it's not the numbers driving my decision personally. It's
Yeah.
the history. You know, if you look at their history, they come at a lower cost. If you
Good
look
point.
at this building, this is the fourth time they built it. They know what they're gonna need for materials ahead of time. So that's what's driving me to say, hey, they can build it at a more effective and efficient cost than maybe Flansburgh, because this is going to be their second time building it, and they adjust, they both did adjustments to the building, but they're doing more of an adjustment to their building.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking at when I'm making, or I saying Mount Vernon, not necessarily these numbers, because I know they're going to change, because everything, like it's a little ping pong here. It's going to change, but I see what they bring to the table in their history. And even Flansburgh put the graph up. Hey, we're more here, but then you see Mount Vernon is performing at a lower cost than the average. So that's where I'm getting, and that's where my decision is going. And it's, to get to Jackie's point, I was like, you get nervous because you do want to make, I feel both school can perform, can do it. But, when you have to look at the finances, I'm looking at the history because, that's what people do. Look at your past performance in order to sometimes make decisions, But I just wanted to put it out there because you say, numbers, but that's not where my decision is coming from. I'm seeing the past, what's going on in the past to get to this point.
So while we've been talking, Ksenia has made this comparison, Anthony, that you're looking for. Ksenia, can you put, I don't know if you need to put them up one at a time, but
just a second. I can put them both up. So I did it 2 ways. There we go. Share. Can you see my spreadsheet? So I did it 2 ways. Let me blow it up so everybody can see. This top way, and I'll color it some color to draw your attention, is the Mount Vernon numbers as they presented them. Sorry, I didn't write down what they are, but this was the building at the bottom, and this was all in number. And this is 5% of these numbers. So if we back out whatever they had for 5% escalation, and then we recalculate it with a 14%. So this would be like a optimistic projection of a future and a more, consistent with what the last couple of years, more conservative projection. And if you add the 14% in, you back out the 5 and you replace it with a 14, their number would drift up from about 60 million all in to about 65 million all in, compared to Flansburgh's 72, right? So just staying there for a second at a 14% escalation, I see them I see Mount Vernon still being lower by 7 million and 10%. So that's adjusting for that. It's not necessarily the only difference between their pricing approaches, but it does narrow the gap substantially, because of course, if we did the delta on the raw numbers, we would be between 72 and 60, and that would be a 17%, right? So 10% of a difference between them, 7% of a difference between them is to do with escalation in the way I see it.
So
Can you do me a quick favor? Their demolition, their abatement costs were quite far off. I think Mount Vernon's abatement was the 1.593.
Yeah, actually, can I just say, Ksenia, the thing I think would be very helpful is to take demo and hazmat out of both of these.
Well, they're pretty close. Can I just say, can you just put in the 2.1? It was basically 2.2 million for demo and sell A3. Could you just change A3 to 2.2 million, and then we'll see where. Okay, so in my opinion, we're comparing 66 million if you look at cell D7 to 72 million
72.
H15. That's much more helpful.
But that also,
What I don't understand why you're taking their already escalated number and then escalating it some more.
No, I think what she was doing was having them both use the same escalation costs. So
she's not adding the escalation mark. She's taking the 5% out of Mount Vernon's to get the today number, which is where Flansburgh started, and then adding 14. So she's justifying that.
So where did you
sorry.
Where did you get the 5%?
Okay, I'm gonna, just for a point of order, if people can please try raising their hands so Margaret or myself can call on people, because it's very hard to follow the meeting when people are talking over each other. And I know we all want to try to figure this out accurately, but let's please try to, go one at a time, please, guys.
All right, Mark. I see.
Yeah,
Mark.
I'm just trying to figure out these numbers here. To me, my company builds machines, and when I can build the same machine, I know what those darn costs are going to be. They've escalated it. They've built it 3 times. This will be the 4th. I think they have a pretty good feel for what their costs are going to come in at. I don't understand why we're now putting our own escalations onto things, because
So Mark, I just want to say thank you, and you've made that comment before. That I'll add that to your comments. But I think the reason that Ksenia did this was to respond directly to a question that Anthony asked. So what I want to do is ask Anthony, does this answer your question?
This absolutely answers my question.
Okay.
If they were used, so like I understand Mark's point, but if they were using the same escalation costs, because escalation costs is just an assumption, it's not about like my materials and how I can do it. Escalation costs is a general assumption that both firms are making, and if both firms were using the same escalation costs, then the difference in these in the project costs would be about $6.4 million. Which is still a significant amount, which is why I would vote for Mount Vernon.
But each school is using different materials, and different materials have different escalations. So to say like stainless steel is equal to steel in the escalation just doesn't hold true. Each one has their design and their materials, and they could escalate at a different amount.
I can tell you, a lot of the escalation in the market recently has been in materials like concrete, structural steel, switchgear, glass, materials that will be used in both designs. They're just not the visible. They're not the visible and pretty materials.
I can appreciate that.
Okay, so
that's my vote. Thank you for answering my question.
I want to now go to Aaron Brunel. You spoke earlier. And I made notes about that. Do you want to add anything to what you said earlier?
I would just like to add that I beyond appreciate everybody's heated, if you will, and dedication to trying to get to the bottom of this, to just ensure that we're seeing it through the right lenses. So I appreciate the candor and the conversation we're having right now to make sure that at the end of the day, we were thorough and we truly did what we felt would be the best for the students of Holyoke and the taxpayers, considering them as well. So have we gone through the full list based on discussion, Margaret?
Well, so 2 things. So the mayor hasn't spoken and Whitney has his hand up. So,
okay.
Mr. Mayor, if you still want to go last, I'm going to take Whitney's question and then I'm going to come back to you.
Okay.
Whitney?
Yeah, thank you. I think Mark Lubold really kind of illustrates my feelings in regards to that recent comparison of, escalated costs. Because if you look at the escalation that Mount Vernon Group has brought forward, It's an increase of 38% from the last time they built the building in 2019. So when you take, and that is the figure at $460 a square foot, that they are estimating between that or 470 plus soft costs, which would be the OPM and the designer.
Not talk about that today.
Well, again, those are anticipated costs. So, but if you look at the hard costs of which we're comparing right now, the price from when Mount Vernon Group had previously built the building from 2019 until their anticipated middle of next year going out to bid has already been escalated by 38%. To add 14.2% on top of that based on someone else's reflection from a competitor, I don't think is a fair comparison in regards to what Mount Vernon Group says that they can perform at. It's not just. And if you were going to make that comparison, you should give them an opportunity to refute that and to at least speak from their professional opinion in regards to what their beliefs are as far as what they can bring to the table, because I think you've over escalated their cost. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
So there isn't much else that I can add here because everyone's hit every point. And I do want to say though, as far as process, there is a lot to be proud about, and I'll explain. The community is looking at us to do our due diligence. They said, build a school that meets the need at the most feasible option available. And in this whole process since day one, this group has been exploring exactly that. When we learned about the model school idea, we started exploring that. We've compared the two and narrowed it down. The two options, well, three options, but model school versus non-model, narrowed it down to two, and here we are now. And I think as far as, you know, going in front of the council, talking to members in the community, Jackie, when you're at Stop and Shop, being approached by people while you're shopping, you can honestly say that in good faith that the group has certainly been doing its due diligence. So that right there in itself is a lot to be proud about. My vote is with Mount Vernon. It certainly, it's, you know, what we spent the last hour or so debating here. It's all projections and anticipated. We really kind of don't know. But to the earlier point that a member here made, you know, as far as experience is concerned, having already done this 4 times or so, certainly offers some peace of mind to know that there could very well be a chance. But obviously, you know, both schools meet needs. There's no matter which way you try to slice this here, as you guys have tried for the last hour or so, it sounds like, it looks like Mount Vernon does still come off as the most feasible, even if it's just by a little bit. But I feel like it makes me feel good to know that when it's time to go in front of the council, we can honestly say, like, we looked at every angle possible to be sure that we're coming forward with the most feasible option. No, we're not building a Taj Mahal. We're building a school that is good and it meets the needs. We even visited these sites. We've debated at length. We looked at both options. We can comfortably go forward and say that, and then, you know, the rest is going to be in their hands. So I appreciate this conversation and all the time you guys have been putting into this. You're doing exactly what has been expected of us. But yes, my vote, Vernon 1, and the other group number 2.
So, Aaron Linville, sorry, you wanted to make a comment. You don't want to make a comment.
No, everything's been addressed. Thanks so much.
Okay. All right. So does everybody feel, somebody want to make a motion to vote officially? I know many of you have spoken, but I'm going to go through now. Someone wants to make a motion and a second.
A motion that we vote.
Okay, Mark motioned.
Second.
Peter seconded.
Now would be the time for further discussion before we vote. So if anybody has further discussion on the motion, if they feel like anything else needs to be discussed before we take a vote. Saying no hands. All righty.
Right. And I see a show of hands for taking a vote now. I see all of the voting members with their hands up. Deborah Vega, right? Okay. Okay. So I'm just going to call your name. What I'd like to ask you to do, just to keep this super simple, is just tell me, since it's just 1 and 2 here, who's got your number 1 vote. And I will record it, and then I will share it on the screen, and we can conclude. So, Mayor Garcia, now I am going to ask you to go first, because that's the way the chart's set
up. Vernon.
Okay. Whitney?
Mount Vernon.
Mark?
Mount Vernon.
Jamie?
Mount Vernon Group.
Jessica?
Mount Vernon.
Raina?
Mount Vernon.
Peter?
Mount Vernon.
Deborah?
Mount Vernon.
David? Oh, David voted before he left. Kathy?
I say Flansburgh.
Jackie?
Mount Vernon.
Anthony?
Mount Vernon.
And Aaron? Brunel.
I'm gonna go with Flansburgh.
Okay. All righty. Let me show you my little tiny itty bitty chart. Is it gonna let me do it? Ay, ay, ay.
If we're all here, that should be 14 for Mount Vernon and 2 for Flansburgh. But aren't we missing someone actually?
I have 15 for Mount Vernon.
David Yost is not here.
Yeah, David isn't
He
here.
voted earlier, though.
Yeah, he recorded his vote with Margaret before he left.
We have 11 Mount Vernons and 2 Flansburghs.
Yeah,
If I
exactly.
did the math right.
What?
That's what I got, too.
Okay, then we're right.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. So that
Excellent. All right.
Great
So
work,
let's
everybody.
let's take 2 minutes to talk about next steps. So what will happen now is I will immediately get in contact with them and let them know how they were ranked. We will begin a negotiation with Mount Vernon Group on fees. I asked you last week if you could all hold the 19th. It is possible that we will be able to come back to you by the 18th with a fee. I unfortunately am working on Martin Luther King Day, and I expect the architects maybe as well. And I'm going to involve Whitney, Jamie, and Aaron Linville in that conversation. So hold on to that date. If it looks like we're not going to get to
The mayor and I will be at the that date, the 19th. We're at the Massachusetts Municipal Association National Conference.
Oh yeah, we'll be there too.
So
okay, so you're committed that evening.
Is there a reason to come back and have a meeting that day, Margaret? Do we have to vote on anything, or is it just like for an informational type of?
Well, I mean, obviously, given this has taken a little time, I'd like to sort of, get moving as quickly as possible. Yeah. I think it's just a question of if the committee wants to sign off on the fee before it goes to city council. So,
yes.
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 So if you don't want to meet the 19th, we could meet the 26th.
I think the fee structure should be accepted by the entire committee as well.
Yep.
Yeah, so if the mayor and
Jamie,
Jamie, I was gonna call you Jess, aren't available. I mean, I have an event to go to that night as well. So if we could do the later date in January, because I think it's pretty much guaranteed you'll have the fee by then. And so
yeah,
then we can meet, settle that. And then if Mr. Tallman's made progress on getting us into finance, he said that would be early February, most likely. And then if that comes up right after, we'll be ready to go.
Okay. And the other thing is, I think by the 26th, we can also lay out a schedule for the project, for the schematic design. So I'm totally okay with that, if that works for everybody.
Does everybody just want to show of hands and see that you're available the 26th? Because we, need to have a certain amount of us. So if people can just give us an idea, and if Margaret has everything she needs, then we'll meet on the 26th.
I am not. Someone else will have to run the text for the meeting so that you know.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Tallman, did you want to add something? I see your hand is up.
We do already have a meeting planned, but I think it's already for finance on the 1st of February, which is a Wednesday. So possibly 2 weeks after that, I'll talk to Joe if we can get that in that time, if that were. I'm just
Can we
wondering
be on the agenda for the 1st?
I'm not sure. I'll talk to Joe. I mean, we have a pretty full agenda already, and I don't know how long this would take for them to come before us. And is this something, Margaret, that the finance committee will have to approve and send it to the full board?
Well, it depends on whether the amount is within the appropriation that's already been made. I won't know the answer to that for a few days. But I will also say it looks like I have a commitment on the 26th at this time. So I'm the one that couldn't make it on the 26th.
Can anybody do a Tuesday like we had discussed before? I know we couldn't do a Tuesday before because somebody else had something, but can we do another day other than a
20, like the 24th? Could we do the 24th?
It works for me.
Works for me.
Mark says yes.
I think
Mayor
I can.
Garcia, does that work for you? And what about Mr. Tallman? Do you have city council that night?
There's a committee meeting, but I don't think we have one. That's a Tuesday, right?
Yeah. Tuesday the 24th.
No, our next meeting is the 17th, so I can make it. Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. So that will be at 6.
And Margaret, if for some reason you don't have the information, just let us know and we'll reschedule.
Yeah, I cannot imagine we're not going to have this settled by that date.
Okay.
I'll be late,
Hey,
like 15 minutes late.
Okay.
Mayor Garcia, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say wasn't it already authorized up to it was like 400 and something thousand to do this work?
Yeah. So that's why Margaret said only if it's above would we need a city council approval again.
Well, and the other thing too.
Want to point out that the 475 isn't just the designer. The 475 also included Margaret.
Yeah, it's both consultants. Yeah, and it was based on a different schedule assumption and a different designer.
Mayor, the designer appropriation was $265,000 out of that.
Got it.
Okay.
One more thing.
Yes.
That February 1st meeting of the Finance Committee, just to let folks know, pencil it in now, and I'll certainly bring it up again when we meet again, that we're going to present the 5-year finance forecast model. Now, just to be clear, we're presenting the model and some basic assumptions. It's not necessarily a meeting to talk about what our city's future is looking like. It's a tool that we're presenting to the council with basic assumptions. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to this model that I certainly look forward to playing with so that we can add our own assumptions and determine, what the future of the city is going to look like. So, but pencil it in, and I'll remind you guys again in our next meeting.
Perfect. That's great. Thank you. Aaron Brunel, back to you to close.
All right, so my laptop died, so I actually don't have my agenda in front of me, but I'm 95% sure the next thing on the agenda would be to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Nope, do not.
No, which you're not ready. Not ready because of me. So
Okay, so we will table that for now. And then, was there anything else, Erin? I'm sorry, like I said, my laptop died, so I don't have it in front of me.
No.
So I think the only other things was to discuss nothing. So I think we're good to go.
Next
So
meeting.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Tallman and Mr. Lubold. All those in favor, we can
Aye.
take a
Aye.
little show of hands. So Margaret can record. All right, so meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you everyone for your time and dedication this evening. We're getting one step closer. So everyone have a great rest of your night and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Good night.
Have a good night. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
thanks everybody.